All right, folks. Are you guys ready? It's like the Super Bowl for politics. The debates that will set the tone for the rest of this campaign season. A terrifying proposition for all involved. Everyone has the world to gain and everything to lose. Who will come out on top? I have my suspicions. But we're just going to have to see where the world takes us, okay? And yes, I am playing the music on my stream. We got one more that's going to play. But all the songs that I would learn all the way through are way too hard for someone at my skill level, so that's the problem. You have to have the motivation in the first place. Anyways, I forgot that part you have to skip over because he says the F slur about 40 times in a row. Alrighty, what are we doing? Let's see where we're at. Oh yeah, that's right. My layout is over here now. And if this did happen, would it be bad? Yes. But would it be that big of a deal? I'm not sure about that one. That one I will say. I'm not sure if it would be that big of a deal. I just don't know. I don't know. Like I would admit immediately, yeah, if someone's eating, Princess Purr, I don't know. I can't think of good Mittens. That's a good cat name. If someone was eating Mittens, I'd probably be pretty upset about it. And if this was happening a lot, I'd be extra mad about it. Because I don't like it when people harm cats. Because I'm a big cat guy. But it didn't happen. And it would be bad. I just don't understand. Like, they just respond with things. Like, thought-terminating cliches. Because it is easier to completely terminate the thought than it is to deal with the fact that A, you're wrong, B, you're stupid, and C, you're gay. I don't know. What else are you supposed to do? Like, what are you supposed to do for these people? Unironically, we just got to start doing the Trump thing. You're wrong. You gay. Lock him up. Like, that's all you got. That's, like, all we can do. We just have to flip the script on them completely. Okay. Let's turn that off. And let's see. We have... Oh my god, 43 minutes? I don't know if I'll watch all that. The best ones are the follower insults? What does that mean? Oh, I know what you mean, yeah. Thought I would stop by and say, hi, someone promised their GF a date night and forgot what tonight was. Well, listen, dude. Go on a date with your girlfriend, all right? You don't have to be politics brained all the time. I'm happy for you going on a date, though. How does the earring thing cat service... What? How does eating... service the interest of the deep state, or is it a side effect of the deep state control? It would be to, man, I don't even feel like, I'm sorry, I don't feel like steel manning the, literal, syphilitic ramblings of our former president. I don't. The fake Venezuelan story? What was the fake Venezuelan story? GOP and Russia are getting desperate. This is I don't even know if Russia is at this point Russia might be hopping onto it because they're like, oh, the conservatives in the United States are doing another thing. Oh, let's hop onto that. But this came from the GOP. This came from JD Vance. It came from Donald Trump. They're posting AI images of Donald Trump hugging cats. This is where we're at right now, guys. This is where we're at right now. Unfortunately, this is the world that we live in. Alrighty, let's see here. Really quick, right before we get started, we got 6 people watching on YouTube, but only 2 likes. Hit the thumbs up button for me, folks. Pump the like button up a little bit higher, all right? The more people that like the stream, the more people will pop into chat, the more entertainment value that you guys get out of my stream. All right. Like the stream. Thank you. There's one. All right. So we've got Piers Morgan on this issue. And we also got Tucker Carlson. Or Tim Pool, sorry.
Carlson for recent viral interview. Carlson, they're warmonger freaks. They don't get the moral high ground. The White House has condemned Tucker Carlson for a recent viral interview he conducted with a historian.
Yeah, because the historian is like, I'm sorry, I don't call everyone a Nazi. I really don't. But this guy's a Nazi. Okay? He's trying to whitewash Hitler. There's not very many people in history that you can point towards and say, actually, they weren't that bad, who have a record like Hitler's and still not be a bad person. There's very few people that if you were to like try and whitewash them, that you could get away with doing it and still look like a good person, right? You couldn't do it with Mao. You couldn't do it with Hitler. You can't do it with Stalin. These are just bad people.
Monday, the Independent broadcaster released an interview with podcaster Daryl Cooper, whom Carlson referred to as the best and most honest popular historian in the U.S. The viral episode, which is approaching 30 million views on X, has resulted in Cooper's Martyr-Made podcast topping the iTunes charts and surpassing Carlson's podcast. Wow. During the wide-ranging 2-hour interview, Cooper offered a heterodox view of Winston Churchill. Quote, I think maybe I'm being a little hyperbolic, maybe, but I thought Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War, Cooper said. He didn't kill the most people. He didn't commit the most atrocities. He was primarily responsible for that war becoming what it did.
I think that it was actually the guy that invaded all those different countries. What was his name, guys? Damn, I'm totally blanking on the guy that invaded Poland in 1939, who started World War II, who got the Axis powers to all align with him, who invaded first. I think that like they invaded East, and then they invaded West, and then they started bombing all of London. Damn, I'm just blanking. I'm blanking on his name. He invaded and he started the World War II. But I feel like it would be that guy that's probably most easily put into the camp of the bad guy, the worst villain in World War II.
In a statement issued to CNN, the Biden administration Senior Deputy Press Secretary Andrew Bates said giving a microphone to a Holocaust denier who spreads Nazi propaganda is a disgusting and sadistic insult to all Americans, to the memory of over 6 million Jews who were genocidally murdered by Adolf Hitler, to the service of the millions of Americans who fought to defeat Nazism, and to every subsequent victim of anti-Semitism. Hitler was one of the most evil figures in human history and the chief villain of World War II, full stop. The Biden-Harris administration believes that trafficking in this moral rot is unacceptable at any time, let alone less than 1 year after the deadliest massacre perpetrated against the Jewish people since the Holocaust, and at a time when the cancer of anti-Semitism is growing all over the world. I gotta say, I have not listened to the full interview that Tucker Carlson.
Oh, but we're about to have some very strong opinions on freedom of speech. That's what we're about to do. I haven't actually heard all the Nazi apology. I haven't actually heard any of this, all of this like supposedly bad historical analysis, as these commies might say. But I'm a free American, patriot-loving, freedom-loving, eagle-kissing American. And I think that everyone should be able to is this a podcast after the leaks? Yes, this is posted 3 days ago. So after the leaks came out.
I did see a lot of people saying that there was a mix of conservative and liberal personalities misquoting what Cooper had been saying in the.
They didn't misquote him. We watched it yesterday. It was actually so abhorrent. The historical revisionism to make the Nazis look better. It was so bad I couldn't finish it. It was disgusting. The Nazis were the bad guys. I know that's a hot take.
The podcast. I would say this, for my opinion on this, I think it's silly to say Churchill was the chief villain. I understand the point he's trying to make. Responsibility in war is not, it's not, we're not facing comic book villains, but
Hitler is as close to a comic book villain as you can get. Who do you think half of the bad guys in comic books are 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 are, are made to look like. Half of comic books actually have the Nazis as the bad guys. They're just that evil. They're literally comic book level evil. They diverted war resources when they were losing and were getting raped by the communists coming in from the east. They diverted war resources so they could kill more Jews. They are comic book levels of evil. They are supervillains. Is it possible that the secret Hitler moon compound is bankrolling? Yeah, maybe.
I gotta be honest, like, dude, Hitler was the chief villain, and I know there's a lot of people who are gonna make arguments about the heterodox nature of things, like, you know, in this.
Yeah, it's called relativism, and it's
Yeah,
like,
no.
This is a
Churchill,
a postmodern, you know, deconstructivist.
Even in relativism, you're not going to find Nazi apologia because there's no one that was nearly as relatively as evil as Hitler during World War II. Stalin was an evil person. He was a really bad dude. But during World War II, I think it's Hitler that takes the trophy home.
Approach to history from
And even Stalin probably isn't even, I would say Stalin's probably number 3 behind, like, the Japanese who were doing human experiments on people. Like, I'm sorry, World War II was a really up time. World War II was like the most up time in possibly in human history, where you get like the industrial level genocide, which had never been seen before or since. They had to invent the word genocide to describe what happened.
a right-wing perspective instead of a left-wing perspective, but it's still exactly
Right.
the same thing.
yeah, look, my view is you absolutely can criticize Churchill. I read a decent amount about, you know, I read Cooper's thread on why.
Also, nobody's saying that you can't criticize Churchill. There's plenty of stuff that you can criticize Churchill for. You just can't say that he was worse than Hitler.
He's critical of Churchill, and I'm like, look, my opinion is that he's critical of Churchill for waging war on a country at war, and he didn't like the tactics used. Hitler killed people for psychotic reasons. Like, that was like a psychotic. I mean, look, the argument, I suppose, outside of what he's saying is, if you drive people to the brink of starvation and insanity and demoralization and conquest and then let it stew, they will bubble up and go insane. But to claim that Churchill is the chief villain, I think is just not correct.
Call it what it is. It's Nazi apologia.
I agree.
Did you guys listen to the podcast?
So I listened to clips of it. I didn't listen to the full thing. But I just looking at it through analyzing history, I think a lot of Americans don't understand, the Allies did commit some atrocities, and then also the fact that the Allies, stood with Stalin, and, Stalin committed, the Holodomor, a lot of these different, genocides. And I think because, they were largely with the Allies, and the Allies have kind of wrote.
Also, when it comes to the Holodomor, like the U.S. government probably knew, and that's a moral stain on FDR's presidency. No cap, 100%. You know what's worse than even the Holodomor, the Holocaust. I'm sorry that I cannot think of anything worse than the Holocaust. And that sounds like the soy thing because it's so passé. Like, oh, the Holocaust is bad. Wow, what a brave take. But again, it's a level of evil that just has never been replicated in all of human history.
A lot of the history, and it's kind of the founding mythos of our modern politics. I think it is important to kind of look critically at that. I wouldn't agree that Winston Churchill was the main villain of World War II, but I as with any political leader, they're not perfect, and I think it is kind of important to look at.
Even
everything that
Mussolini
they did.
was worse than Churchill.
So Carlson responded saying, the fact that these lunatics have used the Churchill myth to bring our country closer to nuclear war than at any moment in history disgusts me and should terrify every American, he wrote in a text message to the outlet. They're warmonger freaks. They don't get the moral high ground. Though Cooper has not directly addressed the White House statement, he mentioned the controversy on an interview in a Thursday Evening X post. The furor over my Tucker interview is straight replay of the very fine people hoax. Totally mendacious, claiming the literal opposite of what was actually said. Too shameless to care that people can easily go see the video themselves. During his interview with Carlson, Cooper clarifies comments, saying that, well, this is a quote, and the next thought comes to your head is that, oh, you're saying Churchill was the chief villain, therefore his enemies, Hitler and so forth, were the protagonists, right?
That is the implication. Yeah, actually.
They're the good guys. If you think he's a villain, that's not the case. That's not what I'm saying. He says, Germany, look, they put themselves in a position, and Adolf Hitler is chiefly responsible for this, but his whole regime was responsible for it. That when they went into the East in 1940.
But his whole regime is responsible for it? They all answered directly to him. What do you think a fascist state is? It's led by a strongman. One dude at the top directing, dictating, if you will. It's almost like he was a dictator who dictated to his underlings what to do.
41, they launched a war where they were completely unprepared to deal with the millions and millions of prisoners of war, of local political prisoners and so forth.
It wasn't that they were unprepared to deal with the millions and millions of prisoners of war. They were trying to wipe them all out. There are literal plans to starve out the entirety of fucking Eastern Europe so that Germans could jump in, take over that land, and live their like little pastoral German countryside lifestyles.
That they're going to have to handle. They went in with no plan for that, and they just threw these people into camps, and millions of people ended up dead there. Cooper then argued that components of the traditional narrative of World War II have become akin to modern American mythology. I suppose if the greater point he's saying is that Adolf Hitler, in his idealistic fervor and desire for, seizing back land and expanding German territory, captured, imprisoned, and then killed millions of people.
But it wasn't because they were unprepared. Like, oh no, what? Suddenly I have millions of prisoners of war and all these civilians I have to take care of. What am I going to do? That's not what happened. They went in knowing that their solution, or their final solution, if you will, was to exterminate all of the Jews, all of the Eastern Europeans that didn't have Germanic blood. They were going to enslave the Eastern Europeans and just let them all starve to death while they worked in labor camps so that they could move more Germans in to have Lebensraum. It was not an accident. It was not an oopsie daisy. We have a lot of Slavs in our clutches now. It was, this is to be expected. Make them dig their own graves and then put a bullet in the back of their head. Oh, you're telling me that that's not efficient enough? Well, maybe we can put them into the back of some trucks and, put the exhaust fumes from the truck and have them, suffocate that way. Oh, that's not efficient enough? Oh, well, maybe we'll put them into camps and use them for labor. They're not dying fast enough? Well, there is one final thing that we might be able to do that would be able to kill a lot of people in a very short amount of time. Funny that the Germans around 1943 really started getting desperate to take more prisoners for forced industrial labor. Turns out letting all the POWs they took in 1941 starve was bad policy.
Well, I don't know. I don't really. I just feel like it's, pulling hairs. I suppose the argument is there are stupid people who don't understand history and think it's can't stand to hear about laying out what happened and how it happened. I feel like once you read all of it, you still conclude that Hitler is the bad guy. I don't know if he's saying.
I feel that way too.
I'm sorry. Of all of the history books that I've read on this, all right. Again, back when I was debating Nazis on a regular basis, I got real tired of the Nazi apologia for what happened in World War II. I went out and I read several books about the rise of the Third Reich. I got tired of arguing with socialists who were saying that it was the Social Democrats' fault for the Nazis' rise to power. And it's like, man, you know what? I think Hitler was the bad guy. I think that this guy, the more there's a good clip that I just love. Oh, come on. It shouldn't be that hard.
With Hitler, the more I learn about that guy, with Hitler, the more I learn about that guy, the more I don't care for him. I can't. And there's nothing redeeming about the guy. I tell you, the guys, I go, how on earth could these Germans follow this lunatic, And they're like, oh, he was an incredible public speaker, he could hypnotize you with his public speaking. And then I see him, he's like, strangely, strangely, strangely. I go, what? That's not my idea of a silver-tongued devil,
He will be missed.
I think Hitler is probably the evil person.
Okay, we got to get through it.
Probably.
There's probably others, like Mussolini wasn't great. Stalin was a terrible guy. That being said, you need allies in war. War doesn't mean you team up with your best friends and go on an expedition.
Also, yeah, I don't think that people were enthused about Stalin per se. Now, to be fair, I don't know as much about the American attitudes towards Stalin. I know that there were a lot of journalists and a lot of people in the liberal elite intelligentsia. The academics in the United States were hardcore trying to cover up the Holodomor and stuff like that. But once the war started, I'm not entirely sure, because that was mostly my knowledge about how people viewed socialism mostly comes from the 1910s to the 1930s. I do not know what they thought about communist Russia during the war. I know immediately after the war, there was not a great sentiment between America and the Soviets. So I'm just going to make it a guess that people probably weren't super enthused about Stalin either. But also, it is actually kind of crazy to me that people seem to and tend to forget how bad the Japanese were during World War II. They did some insane things. They were as bad as the Nazis when it comes to the human experimentation and killing tons of people. They had the racial supremacy thing. You know who didn't? Ironically enough, the Italians. No one talk about Fronten Island? I'm not falling for a D's nuts joke, Admiral Gibbs, okay? I ain't falling for a D's nuts joke.
And war means that you're struggling to save your nation from, obliteration and to save your allies from obliteration. And you have to make really hard choices. I know this is not a popular thing to say, but I listened to a bunch of interviews with Condoleezza Rice after she left the Bush administration. And I think she's I think she's very intelligent, and I think she thinks things through all the way, which is not something that happens very much anymore.
You'll never get me, Admiral Gibbs. What is Fronten Island?
But she said, she was asked about the Iraq War, right? Which was, in my view, a really bad idea. And she said, we had to decide between several really bad alternatives. There were no good options, right? In World War II, were there a bunch of really good options and the US and Britain just took the ones that were the worst? I don't think there were good options available. And I think that is important to remember.
I think we chose the best option, standing up to the literal Nazis. The actual Nazis, the ones that were going around and gassing Jews. I think that was a good thing for us to stand up against. The island Texas just took from Mexico and the cartels last year in the Rio Grande. Let the cartels have it back, or did he tell them to let Mexico have it back? Hold on. Did the Texas National Guard take territory from... Because I've heard about this island. I know what island you're talking about. Until the Italians adopted racial laws in 1938. Oh, did they? Okay, well, my understanding of Italian fascism is that there wasn't as much of a racial component to it. But again, I know quite a bit about Nazi Germany and the lead up to World War II, and a little bit about the war in the Western Front. So it'd probably be in terms of my knowledge on World War II, it is the rise of the Nazis in Germany at the very top. Under that would be the war itself and how it kind of went across, how it went especially in the European theater. Then probably under that would be the probably a tie on anything to do with the Pacific Front and, oh, 1 second. Hello? Oh, man, my wonderful girlfriend is getting me Chick-fil-A. Isn't that sweet of her? Okay, here's my question, Admiral Gibbs. Like, on one hand, it feels like when it comes to like giving the island back to Mexico, and I guess by virtue of that giving it back to the cartels, or even if Biden did tell them to like give it back to the cartels, if that's what they told them, like it would beggar belief that the Biden administration doesn't realize that that looks bad, right? There's probably a really good reason for it, is what I would assume. All right. Now, maybe they're just comic book, levels of evil, or maybe they're just cartoon levels of stupid. But I'm going to make an assumption that they probably have a reason for it. I mean, it's a real problem down here. Yeah, but it also might be. Well, hold on. It also might be a major issue that individual states inside of the United States are claiming disputed territory with our neighbor, who we're like on a downward trajectory in terms of our relations with that ally. It's probably a little bit more complicated than just like, oh, liberals are just hand waving it. Like, can you not think of a possible like complication in terms of our relationship with Mexico that this might be causing? Especially for a singular state to be challenging at every single level what states are allowed to do with our borders. Like, if a state is allowed to like go and seize territory, even if it's disputed, but with like Mexico or with Canada, then what would be the constitutional barrier for them taking, just like invading and taking more land? Well, that would probably be for invasions. That would probably be for invasions. Yeah? Oh, okay. So if you show me now, hold on. Listen, Admiral Gibbs, if you show me some kind of document from the what was it that when Texas joined the Union? It must have been after, was it after the Civil War? No. It couldn't have been. But I thought that Texas got its independence from Mexico in like 1860. But if you could show me something from, when Texas joined the Union, okay, and it says, hey, Texas, you're in charge of immigration security or some shit like that, then I'll totally be yeah. And if they say that the United States is also ceding all constitutional requirements for the federal government to be the ones that are in charge of enforcing our border to Texas, then I'll also change my opinion. Do you think that it's possible to have border security without claiming disputed territory between the two nations? Answer that question. Is there a way to secure the border? Was there a way to secure the border without seizing territory that Mexico thinks is theirs and we think is ours? Unilaterally, without any guidance or permission from the federal government. No, answer the question. Is there a way? They even helped us take the island? Oh, okay. Well then, they should probably be on their side of the border and not allowing anyone to go onto the island. And we should be on our side of the border, not letting anyone go onto the island. It's still disputed territory until one of us gives it up. And in that case, then one of us can put our troops on there. I'm sorry. I'm not getting one guy about this issue. Okay. Italian fascism started out non-racial, but as Italy drew closer to Germany, they adopted more and more Nazi-esque policies. Okay, yeah, I don't know a lot about Italy in World War II, like complete bottom of all of my knowledge. I know more about the Africa campaign North Africa, like wars in World War II, than I knew about anything to do with Italy. All right. I know the Italians ran their pants away from the Americans and the British in North Africa. Other than that, don't know at all. Okay. Oh, this must
Hey
be
guys,
brand
welcome
new.
back to today's video.
20 minutes ago.
Today is Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. Happy debate day.
Well, hold on.
Today we're...
Oh, well, he's said happy debate day. I wonder if he has a video specifically on the...
Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. Happy debate day. Today we are going to be talking about the battleground state of North Carolina and 3 back-to-back polls.
Wait, hold on. We didn't finish the Tucker Carlson video. Jesus Christ. This is what happens when I don't get to be medicated on stream, okay, people?
That when you're facing this kind of thing, which we could be facing ourselves, like, are there a lot of good options available when it comes to Israel or when it comes to Ukraine? Every option leads to some kind of death and destruction and horribleness. Right. Every single option. Getting involved is bad. Not getting involved also leads to bad things. You know, it doesn't matter what you do, which option you pick, something bad is going to happen. Whether it's, you know, immediately for your nation or somebody else's, or for your allies, or for all of the children, or whatever. Pick your victim class.
I'll put it in a modern context, I suppose. I can't, because I'm not going to sit here and speak about, I don't know, like, I read Cooper's thread on Churchill, and it's very interesting, where he makes the points that blockade, starvation created desperation and anger and a generation of angry young men and all these things. He didn't say that literally, but it's the general idea, I suppose. And among other things, that wasn't the principal message. But
we're taking Sondsol out of the echo chamber. Admiral Gibbs, I know you've only known me for like a couple of weeks. You can never, I have one person that you can never accuse of being in an echo chamber, okay?
you look right now with Ukraine, and I think it's fair to say that Putin's the bad guy. But I don't think it's fair to say that Putin's goal is the conquest of Europe, that he takes Ukraine, he's going to take Poland. I think that is exaggeration. Those are exaggerations to justify foreign, namely U.S. and NATO involvement in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. He should not have. The U.S. was engaged in a soft power battle that was winning. What? And that's preferable to hot conflict. Speak about. I don't know. Like, I read Cooper's thread on Churchill, and it's very interesting, where he makes the points that blockade, starvation created desperation and anger and a generation of angry young men and all of these things. He didn't say that literally, but it's the general idea, I suppose. And among other things, that wasn't the principal message. But you look at right now with Ukraine, and I think it's fair to say that Putin's the bad guy. But I don't think it's fair to say that Putin's goal is...
Changing his tune. Changing his tune now that he got caught taking that Russian money.
The conquest of Europe, that he takes Ukraine, he's going to take Poland. I think that is exaggeration. Those are exaggerations to justify foreign...
Wait, what?
And I think it's fair to say that Putin's the bad guy. But I don't think it's fair to say that Putin's goal is the conquest of Europe, that he takes Ukraine, he's going to take Poland. I think that is exaggeration.
They annexed parts of Ukraine. What makes you think this isn't about conquest?
Those are exaggerations to justify foreign, namely U.S. and NATO involvement in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. He should not have. The U.S. was engaged in a soft power battle that it was winning, and that's preferable to hot conflict.
Yeah.
Vladimir Putin decided hot conflict was better because he didn't want to lose a soft power battle, and I think that is wrong. He could the original. So what happens in Ukraine is the East and the West were offering up money and opportunity,
and the Ukrainians wanted to go with the West. Putin wanted Ukraine to go with him.
Putin said to Ukraine, if you do a deal with the EU, we will cut off our trade agreement with you. And then Ukraine said, okay, then we're going to go with the wealthier Western European and NATO. And so Putin was like, well, yeah. And his argument was, the Russian argument, that if Ukraine opened up trade to Western Europe, those products would then freely flow into Russia and disrupt their economy, so we had to cut them off. And then by doing so,
why would that disrupt your economy? Can you explain that?
Lost the soft power battle, offered up nothing in return to the Ukrainians, and then decided to instead invade. I think that was a stupid thing to do. And I think he's a guy who tries to hold on to power for a long time. That being said, that doesn't justify U.S. funding a conflict in a country we...
Hell yeah, it does. We're the world police, and that's a good thing, okay? We're the world police. If you start doing some shit and start bullying your smaller neighbors, right? And those smaller neighbors have good relations with us, and it's something that, you know, the U.S. wants everyone to be a stable democracy, all right? Just a stable democracy. Because stable democracies produce better results for the people there and better results for business here. And it's just better for everyone involved. Unless you're a dictator, in which case it's really bad. Because then, you know, you don't get to be a part of all the things that the U.S. wants. If you're going to be a dictator, you're going to try and destabilize other countries, then we're going to have a real problems. What if they are a nice dictator? Hey, listen, if they're a dictator and they're not going, we can pressure them to do certain things, all right? If they're a stable dictatorship, all right? We can pressure them into doing that. But the second they start doing some whack shit, like trying to disrupt our, democratic, our democratic milieu. Damn, I hate having ADHD and streaming. Long story short, we want stable democracies. We don't want people to be invading other countries and destabilizing those countries. We're in the moral right for sending, dude, if we sent 5 billion JDAMs and they nuked every single Russian position in the entire country of Russia, I don't think it would be a morally bad thing whatsoever. I think that it would just be another point, another W on the board for the US. That's what I think.
We have nothing to, like, that is not us. And
bro, not having Vyvanse makes me want to die. Okay. It is like, I'm on 70 milligrams a day because my ADD is really, really bad. All right. And I have one Vyvanse left that I'm having to take it apart and take little bits of it so I can focus on applying for more jobs and for when I get a job interview. It's just.
The argument they've made is that, well, they may join NATO. I mean, why are we expanding on Russia's border as it is and creating this potential problem?
Because they're all scared of Russia and they don't want to be invaded by Russia. So they come to Western support. They come seeking Western support economically and militarily because Russia makes it seem like they want to invade everyone that used to be part of the Soviet Union. And they did it in Georgia and they did it in Chechnya. And now they're doing it in Ukraine. They don't want to be conquered.
Being said, I can understand soft power versus hot conflict, but why are we now, after this is all going down, deciding that we are going to be involved militaristically in this conflict, or that I or any other American should support the funding of hundreds of billions of dollars going to this country that is not?
I would support trillions of dollars. Go on, bro. Russia, dude.
One of our allies.
There's also this crazy thing now. You know how the U.S. is giving. Oh, you have a fly on your head there.
There's always a fly in here.
Yeah, I just didn't want.
There's 2 of them.
There.
Because we have the door. Everything's open.
Yeah. But
now it's on your head.
Oh, come on. I don't like bugs. What was I going to say? Oh, so Ukraine's taking all of these weapons from the U.S., but they also put together all these deals with the help of the U.S. to have defense and munitions.
Oh, also, I saw a headline. I don't know what the full story is on it because I didn't get to read it. But I saw a headline that the U.S. is now changing our stance on whether or not the Ukrainians can use ATACMS missiles to strike into Russia proper. Based. Let them do whatever they need to do. Come.
Munitions companies in Ukraine. And so now they're making their own weapons. And you know what they're doing with those? They are selling them out of the country.
Ukraine is?
Yeah.
Selling what?
At Human Defense the other day. And munitions companies in Ukraine. And so now they're making. What was I going to say? Oh, so Ukraine's taking all of these weapons from the U.S., but they also put together all these deals with the help of the U.S. to have defense and munitions companies in Ukraine. And so now they're making their own weapons. And you know what they're doing with those? They are selling them out of the country.
Ukraine is?
Yeah. This is something we covered.
I do not believe that this is true whatsoever.
Events the other day.
Wow.
And it's just like, so you're taking our stuff.
Well,
You're taking a bunch of contracts so that you can build your own stuff.
It's the business for.
And now you're selling that.
We-
Meanwhile, you have anyway.
we know about the fortifications that never got built.
This isn't it. There's literally nothing. There's nothing that shows that that's happening.
Yes.
I mean, it's crazy that you have people on.
Oh, yeah, we are going to watch the debate live, but the debate will not be streamed to, we're not streaming this to YouTube or to Twitch because we will get insta-banned. So there are third platforms, namely Kicked. Hey, Trump will destroy Camel Toe Harris. Yes, Trump will definitely, you conservatives will definitely do so well the more that you guys attack people specifically just over the fact that they are women or the fact that they are not white or anything like that. That will definitely destroy the libs. That will definitely win you guys the election. Please keep doing it. Please stop doing it. Please stop. You guys are going to win the election doing that. Please, no. Oh, God. Oh, no, they're doing sexist and racist attacks against Kamala Harris. oh no, that's how they're going to win the election. Please stop. Please stop. Oh no, please stop.
Acts that are just blindly putting up the Ukrainian flags and saying, woo, we're going to support them no matter what. And I'm like, we gave a bunch of money to these companies that were fake. The government knew, and then the money was taken by criminals and they ran. It is insanity.
Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show.
Don't care. She's just not fit for president. Sorry. I think that the guy that tried to steal the election and then cried about it, never admitting that he never even arguing that he didn't do this, attempted steal of the election. He never even contests that. He just said that he should be able to do it because it's, his right as president. Alrighty. What else do we got? I do not want to watch a 45-minute video of, all right, listen.
Hitler, Churchill.
I need something that's not this topic, please. For the love of God, please. Link me something better, okay? Is there anything else fun to watch?
This guy's the chief
Or, never mind.
villain? Really?
And that doesn't mean that you're some type of, Holocaust denier.
Utter conspiracy theory nonsense. The idea of Zionist financiers was a dog whistle as far as I was concerned.
And he says what happened in France under Hitler with that invasion was infinitely preferable to what just happened at the Paris Olympics. Like, to suggest that that's infinitely preferable to an offensive display at the Olympics is wild.
So, like, as somebody who has consumed hours and hours and hours of his content, I'm not like hanging him over one tweet that he sent that I think was like, yeah, again, being very hyperbolic and I don't think was really landed.
Tucker praised this guy as like the greatest historian and scholar. He gave him a very soft interview where he didn't push back on any of this stuff. And I mocked that, and he got kind of upset about that and reached out to me. I'm like, I never called you a Nazi. I just said you went soft on a Hitler apologist.
So Winston Churchill is almost unanimously regarded as a hero in Western society, not least by me. In fact, I think, like a lot of people in this country who voted him the greatest ever Britain, that he is indeed the greatest.
MindOfZ, if you want to talk about Kamala versus Trump, hop on into the Discord.
Of all of us here, ahead of Shakespeare, Charles Darwin, Sir Isaac Newton, the Beatles, all of them. Yes, Churchill had significant flaws, including some caustic opinions and brutal decisions which were very much of their time. These flaws are widely acknowledged, and he made some big mistakes. But not when it comes to the World War II. Rallying this country and the Allies to defeat the Nazis has always been considered a very good thing. Because self-evidently, it was a very good thing. But last week, history podcaster Daryl Cooper appeared on Tucker Carlson's show in a now viral interview, which included the claim that Churchill, not Adolf Hitler, was the, quote, chief villain of the Second World War. As we'll see, it didn't stop there. Debate has raged ever since, not just about Churchill, but about whether free speech and free thinking apply to something as binary as historical fact. In a moment, we'll debate the big picture with Part of the Problem podcast host Dave Smith, who thinks Daryl Cooper is a national treasure, and Babylon B CEO Seth Dillon, who does not think that. But first, I'm joined...
Wait, the Babylon B guy is against Tucker Carlson on this one? If the Babylon B guy is against you on this, you know you're in the wrong, dude.
By eminent historian and author of Churchill, Walking with Destiny, a brilliant book, Andrew Roberts. Andrew, your first reaction when you heard about this interview with Tucker Carlson, not least to the fact that Daryl Cooper was described as the most eminent historian in the United States. Was that a surprise to you?
That did surprise me, owing to the fact that I hadn't heard of him. So I asked a few historian friends, serious and significant figures, American historians, and they hadn't heard of him either.
I watched it, and entertaining though it was, certainly very watchable, I just kept thinking, that can't be true. That isn't true. Well, I know that's not true, but the overarching theme that somehow Churchill was a bigger villain than Hitler was so preposterous.
And
Stalin was so utterly preposterous that at that point I went, I can't believe anything this guy's telling me.
Yes, the shocking thing for me was that Tucker Carlson was taking him seriously at all. A lot of this is just reheated old David Irving stuff from 20 years ago.
True.
There were 8 or 9 major accusations that he made against Winston Churchill, none of which were true.
Well, let's go through some of the key ones, because I think it'd be useful to viewers who didn't watch it to play a little clip and get your response to what was claimed. So the first one, Cooper argued that, as I said, that Churchill could be seen as the chief villain of World War II, and he was responsible for it becoming more than just an invasion of Poland. Let's take a look.
How would you assess Winston Churchill?
I thought Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War. Now, he didn't kill the most people, he didn't commit the most atrocities, but I believe, and I think when you really get into it and tell the story right and don't leave anything out, you see that he was primarily responsible for that war becoming what it did, becoming something other than an invasion of Poland.
Your response?
Well, he wasn't even Prime Minister until May 1940. The invasion of Poland took place in September 1940, and when Hitler invaded the Low Countries and unleashed Blitzkrieg in the West, Churchill wasn't even Prime Minister until later that same day. So he can't be blamed for that. He certainly can't be blamed for Hitler's decision to attack in the West, because that was taken months beforehand with Hitler's major generals. And so that falls at the first hurdle as far
So
as
the
I'm concerned.
basic premise for his claim that Churchill was somehow more villainous is undone
ludicrous.
by reality.
Yes.
It's ludicrous.
Yes,
Undone
this is
actually
normal
by
FDL.
chronology. Because, of course, Hitler was listening to his generals and giving orders to his generals, and Winston Churchill at the time was First Lord of the Admiralty. He was in charge of the Royal Navy and had nothing to do with these decisions.
Is there any suggestion, backed by anything that has remote credibility, that Hitler only intended originally to invade Poland and then the escalation was created by provocation?
None whatsoever, no. There was no provocation. There was the phony war in which nothing happened.
In fact, they had to invent provocation. The Nazis had to pretend that they had to set up an entire false flag operation to make it look like they didn't have to do any of this shit. They just did because they thought that maybe it would trick some people. But they said that Poland was the one that was attacking them, and they invaded, and I can't remember exactly how it went. If Ted is still in chat, maybe he can explain it. But they had fake uniforms, and they killed a bunch of Poles, and I think that they put oh no, wait, did they kill their own dudes and then put Polish uniforms on them? It was so goofy and so stupid, but they did it.
In that 9-month period. And what he always wanted to do was to knock the Western countries out of the war so as to be able to concentrate entirely on the thing that he had always wanted to do throughout his career, which was to win Lebensraum in the East by invading Russia.
Let's play a second clip. This is where Cooper argues that Hitler became obsessed with persuading Britain not to continue the war after Dunkirk.
And the British have, escaped at Dunkirk. There's no British force left on the continent. There's no opposing force left on the continent. In other words, the war is over, and the Germans won. And throughout that summer, Adolf Hitler is firing off radio broadcasts, giving speeches, literally sending planes over to drop leaflets over London and other British cities, trying to get the message to these people.
And the British did this too, and the U.S. did this too. The U.S. did this right before they dropped the nuke. They said, leave this area. We're about to drop a sun on you guys, a portable sun. Because nobody believed that could exist. They didn't leave. Man, I don't know. I just cannot. I can't stand Nazi apologia. It's just the lowest of the low.
Germany does not want to fight you. We don't want to fight you. Offering peace proposals that, it said, you keep all your overseas colonies. We don't want any of that. We want Britain to be strong. The world needs Britain to be strong. Churchill wanted a war. He wanted to fight Germany.
Churchill went out of his way to try and avoid the Second World War. He warned against Germany. He warned that you had to be strong against Adolf Hitler. But the idea that he was some warmonger is something that Goebbels said, and David Irving, and very few other serious people, apart from this Mr. Cooper figure.
There's the famous Neville Chamberlain peace in our time moment, of course, before it all erupts. Is that indicative that Hitler genuinely wanted any kind of peace? Or was
No. He even at the time, he laughed behind Chamberlain's back and sneered at him and ridiculed him.
Let's play the third clip. In choosing to continue the war after Hitler tried to sue for peace, Kuba says that Churchill was committing rank terrorism because he didn't have the means to re-invade Europe.
He was literally, by 1940, sending firebomb fleets, sending bomber fleets to go firebomb the Black Forest. Just rank terrorism, starting to, what eventually became just the carpet bombing, the saturation bombing of civilian neighborhoods, to kill, the purpose of which was to kill as many civilians as possible.
Your response to that, Andrew?
Again, complete rubbish. We did have the means to fight back. We had the greatest navy in the world. We were starting to blockade Germany. We were fighting on the North African littoral at that stage as well. The idea that the war should just end because Hitler has decided that he's won, what he hasn't done is disgorged Poland, and that was the reason we went to war in the first place. So there is absolutely no evidence to back up these accusations.
Isn't it right that Britain had given Poland effective guarantees that if they were attacked, we would defend them?
Yes, on the 1st of April 1939, we gave a guarantee to Poland. And if we hadn't stuck up for that and actually seen that through, it would have been a complete humiliation and very dishonourable, actually, on the part of Britain.
I've had lots of people, because of the Israel-Hamas war, on the Israeli side, citing some of the things that Churchill did in World War II as evidence from their side that what they're doing in Gaza is not dissimilar. And they cite in particular what happened with Dresden, for example, where 25 to 30,000 people were effectively incinerated by a bombing campaign in 24 hours. What do you think when you hear comparisons like that? And was Dresden, as many claim, a war crime, do you think?
I don't believe Dresden was a war crime, no. It was the nodal point by which, through which, it was a great railway centre, the Germans were trying to bring forces from the west to fight in the east. It was tragic, of course, the fact that the German Gauleiter there didn't put up any air raid shelters in the previous 4 years of war. But that wasn't Churchill's fault either.
What I was told about the defence for what happened in Dresden was that if there was the capability by the German military to defend itself, as it was established that there was, that is then a legitimate place to attack in a war. Is that right?
Well, exactly. Of course it is. And under the laws of war, which obviously back in the Second World War slightly different than the ones today, especially as the Germans had already attacked Warsaw, Rotterdam, London, of course, by the time of Dresden as well. The whole strategic sense was different about what you could do and what you couldn't do in aerial combat.
Let's go to the next clip. This is the fourth. He says, Kuba, that Churchill's whole plan was to drag America into the war, which was a craven, ugly way to fight a war. Let's watch.
Just the extent of media operations, propaganda.
Also, I feel like there was another country maybe that might have drawn us into the war more directly. Like, yeah, the British did want us to join the war because we helped them during World War I, and Germany was bombing London, and they took over France and all of that shit. But I'm pretty sure that there was another country that... Man, I just keep on forgetting. It's like my basic 6th grade history lessons are completely gone out the window. I can't remember. Was it the British that bombed us in Hawaii in December 7th of 1941? No, it wasn't the British. Who was it? Who officially drew us into World War II? Who officially did that? I'm trying to think. Oh, it was the Japanese, part of the Axis powers, an ally of the Nazis. Oh, that's right. Damn.
Propaganda operations, everything that they were running in the United States to eventually drag us into that war. And that was his whole plan. His whole plan was we don't have a way to fight this war ourselves. This war is over. We need...
Hold on. I'm getting pulled.
Appreciate that personally from them. Like, I like the specificity and practicality too. Okay, so is the reason why you can actually get a little bit of detail out of Trump and a little bit of detail out of Kamala is just because they know about 3 different subject matters and that's about it, and that's all they're actually good at talking about?
Yeah, well, the 3 things they think they're going to win the election. You can see Trump gets a question he doesn't like, he just doesn't answer it. He just goes back to immigration, economy, and I can't remember the third one.
I think you're right.
It's all politicians have been doing that. You answer the question you want, not the question you get.
Okay, I'm gonna ask this, and y'all gonna just tell me if I'm just hard coping, but is literally everyone who runs in politics got about 80 IQ and has absolutely no moral center? Is that literally just what we've done? We made it where it's so unattractive that we just put up idiots for it?
I think
that's just Trump.
I think that's perspective. I think they're all good people. I think they're all intelligent, well-educated, went to great school. Most of them are lawyers. Most of them have great degrees. And they're usually from AOC to Trump, all decent human beings doing what they think is best for the country. Yeah, white pill. There's your daily white pill, boys.
That's disgusting to me. Okay, am I doing the crazy leftist shit right now? Because I'm not a leftist, but it's I should be able to expect more out of these people. I really think I should. This theater shit is bullshit. People are like, oh, I want politics to be sexy. Politics sucks now. No one knows shit.
Yeah.
No one really knows a thing anymore. It used to be politics was for the nerds. Either you were crazy on a moral level where you just were kind of browbeating everybody because you were a Jesus freak, or you were a huge nerd who were writing policies because either the DOD was paying you or academia was paying you. So what the fuck?
High facts politics exists.
Speaking of high facts politics and hyperbole, really quick, Tyler.
Yes, sir.
Where is the hyperbole? That's why I came in here. I'll let y'all get back to y'all's conversation in just a second. Where's the hyperbole in my post? Okay.
All right. So we're going through what you say. I'll just put it for everybody can hear. The right is making a literal fake news story the center point of their attacks on immigrant communities. In the same week, half of conservative media was outed for being paid Russian stooges.
Yeah. Where did I get the? Hold on.
Where did I get that's hyperbole?
Where did I get the format? And then I said evil afterwards. Why did I say it like this?
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
The only hyperbole is you saying half Sondsol. The rest of it's not hyperbole.
True. Probably 3/4.
It's equally as bad as his hyperbole, and
that
you guys will making a good point. No. I'll explain to you where it is.
The entire hold on. I'm just gonna click on his.
Explain to me where my dog is, okay? That's what I want to know.
I guarantee you, anyone that's not on Twitter has no idea about this Ohio cat eating thing. So it's not the right.
No, you're wrong because Donald Trump and JD Vance are going out and they're talking about this. Donald Trump is tweeting out pictures of him hugging baby kittens and ducks and saying that he's a defender of small, wild, woodland creatures. All right. And I want you to tell me when I say the police haven't gotten any reports about missing pets or wildlife, and then for him to respond with, hold on, let's go back to it. The left is flooding your communities with third worlders with no goal of assimilation. A small town forced to take 20,000 Haitians while facing budget cuts is being crippled by immigration, but the left smiles gleefully as your homes are destroyed, that nothing is happening. Evil.
It's hyperbole, absolutely.
No, it's I am commenting on the fact that they literally don't have a single factual basis, not a single iota of fact to go off and attack all Haitian immigrants in this town for eating their cats and dogs and their ducks. Okay,
are you telling me being isn't a basis? I feel like being retarded is I mean, I'm
too, but at least I pretend I'm retarded too. But at least I try to pretend that I'm not. Okay, these people don't even try.
If you look,
it seems kind of a cool thing.
He is not saying in that post 20,000 Haitians are eating ducks and cat. What he's saying in that post is a small town of 60,000 people was forced to take 15 to 20,000 Haitians, which I'm pretty sure.
Okay, hold on, really quick. I just want to scroll up really quick. Really quick. just scrolling up to the original tweet. All right. Did anybody else have Haitians will invade small town Ohio with crime, killing ducks in the park, massive spike in car accidents, and eating your neighbor's cat because Democrats are funneling them in to destroy America on their 2024 bingo card? Who is more factually in the right here, Tyler?
Hey, to be fair, did you see what the monkeys did during COVID to cities in India? Like, hey, to be fair, like, there is crazy shit going on with animals. It's fucking insane, but yeah.
Okay, again. How did we get here? He's using his hyperbole is a little worse, and he was actually factually correct about
he was factually incorrect, and he was hyperbolic. I asked, where are the police reports that everybody's saying that there are, but the police departments are saying that there aren't a single one of these police reports. They're completely myth as to what to do. All right,
So
I say that, and then he responds by saying that
under control of the Illuminati.
Let's pull this down one level.
Just as a quick reality check, it took less than 20 Facebook posts, including ads, for me to see one of my conservative family members being like, "Herder, hide your doggy."
And I keep repeating that they keep on providing the same exact tweet. And like even today, as I was like trying to like sit there and be like, hey, I think this is pretty disgusting and heinous. So like, yeah, but did you see the video? I'm like, yeah, that video has been debunked like a million times already.
Doghouse, I know this is friends and family from members for you. So like, what the happened to these
Tyler,
people?
what do you think are those blinds gonna change? It seems like it's dark outside. I'm sorry, I just gotta ask really quickly. Tyler closing the blinds was interesting because it seems like it's dark outside and he tried to close a blind, so I'm not sure.
They just look ghetto. They look ghetto when they were all up behind me.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I just wasn't sure what you were doing.
I don't want to like
closing the
take
blinds
over.
while it is
No,
dark
you already
outside?
did.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I did. I have another conversation I'm going to go into for a second. All right.
I'm more
but I just want to say,
blinds.
like,
He is being worse. You're right. I'm sorry I made an equivalency.
Yeah. Okay. The both sidesing when the conservatives right now are losing their minds. Their brains are turning into soup. It's like they don't know what to do. There's a black woman that's running against Donald Trump, and they're like, dude, I only know how to run against white women and white men. Now there's a blackie in front of me. I don't know what to do with this. And now I have to sit with a false equivalency.
She's laughing weird. That's an argument. Like,
I mean,
it's
fair
politically,
point. All right,
you can't be president if you're laughing weird. Like, no, that just doesn't work. Like,
sorry, I got a little bit triggered. I have another conversation I have to do for a second. I will talk to you guys in a little bit. Okay, Jesus Christ, I had to do that. Okay, MindOfZ wants to talk. Okay, MindOfZ, did you thumbs up the rules? Okay, yes, I can hear you. Good.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I was already previously in your server.
Yeah. Just have to make
don't know
sure.
why, but don't know why, but I left. Probably because I was in too many servers. But why do you think Kamala's going to win?
At this point, I think the reason Kamala is probably going to win is because Trump isn't the same guy that he was in 2016. He's not even the same guy that he was in 2020. It doesn't seem like he's holding it together that well. He has a running mate that's digging a grave for this campaign in real time in front of everybody's eyes. I think that Kamala Harris coming in alleviated a lot of the worries that the average Democrat had and brought in a bunch of people that are, just anti-Trump, even if they're conservatives or if they're independents, they just like do not want to deal with Trump anymore. I think that those are probably the biggest reasons that Kamala is going to win, just for a couple of reasons.
So I want to point this out, and I want to point this out. I'm not a pro-Trumper. I severely didn't want him going to the primaries, but yet he is, and whatever. Besides the point. But what does Kamala have to run for? Run policy-wise? What does she actually has to do? That's actually
Are you asking what does she have to run on?
Yeah, giving her grief because right now she has nothing. And the reason why I'm saying that is because her number one job was the border. Yet she's not doing jack all about it. Or, now they are because, they're trying to cover up their asses.
Well, hold on. We'll talk about that super quick. So the border. Kamala was put in charge of talking to the Central American countries like Honduras, Guatemala, there's a third one, but I can never remember. So not Mexico and not the border itself. It was to help out these countries that are south of Mexico, where the majority of the immigration at the time was coming from. She cut the amount of immigration coming from those countries by up to 50%. I think in the case of Honduras, it was 50% fewer people leaving that country to come to the United States because of her. All right. When it comes to the border itself, she was not in charge of that. People like to say this, but when we look at the actual speech where Biden went through and he was talking about how he's making her point person on this specific thing, nothing in there was said about the border. It was talking specifically about these 3 or 4 countries south of Mexico, in between Mexico and what is it, Colombia or Venezuela? I don't remember what borders Panama, but she wasn't the border czar. She was the person that was talking to like a couple of specific countries, and she was pretty successful in that one. In terms of what else she has to run on, she is the vice president, so she didn't have too much say in the like day-to-day operations of the United States, and she didn't have too much say in what our policies were going to be. She followed what the president wanted to do, and
hold on, sorry, I'm gonna say this.
Yeah,
Biden just went along with it. Obama was doing the whole thing, and I think we all know that. Like he was literally just like,
you
okay,
can say
Biden,
that, but you have zero evidence for it. You can say that, but you have zero evidence for it, and on top of that, it seems to line up exactly with all of the things that he said that he wanted to do leading up to him taking the presidency. Like, we like to play make-believe that Biden has always been at the place that he is now in terms of his mental capacity, but in 2020 he was sharper than he is now. In 2016 he was sharper than he was in 2020. It's been a slow, long-term mental decline. So if everything that he said that he wanted to do lines up with what actually happened during his administration, why would we assume that Obama is the one that's coming in and doing all of this stuff?
Okay, so here's a different question. Out of the Democratic Party, if you have the choice to replace Kamala, who would you choose and why?
To replace Kamala right now?
Yes, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, from the Democratic standpoint, I think a lot of Democrats wanted Biden to go in, wanted to stay. But
yeah, I was one of them.
So exclude Biden, and if you're doing this, exclude Kamala. Who would you put?
This is why I didn't want Biden to drop out initially, is because the unknown factor as to what would happen if he did drop out, since it's never been done before. I would rather, generally speaking, I'd rather deal with the known issues than the unknown issues. We don't know what would happen. It's entirely possible that anyone that I name has a bunch of Oppo research already done on them that would be released as an October surprise. In terms of the bench that the Democrats have, they have a deep bench, but I don't know if it would be good for this election. So I don't know if I could say anyone.
Okay. So what questions do you have for me? Because
why, do you really think that Biden has just been, in the passenger seat, just sipping, margaritas and chilling while Obama's in charge? Why do you think that?
It's because I think Obama's got a little bit jealous because Biden actually got the quote unquote win.
Why would Obama be jealous? He already had his 8 years.
Because he probably wanted more. He probably wanted to do it. If he really wanted to, he probably would have done the full another term or two. But because it's not allowed, thank God it would.
Yeah. Well, Obama is, an actual patriot, unlike Donald Trump, who did try to explicitly overturn the election so that he could stay in power. So it's actually kind of based, in my opinion, that
no, he didn't.
He doesn't even contest this. Nobody who was involved contests it. You realize that, right? You know what Donald Trump's defense is in court, right? Since you don't think that he did this, you know what his defense in court is, right?
Just say it. I know what it is. I just want you to say it.
Oh yeah, well hold on. Now I wasn't going to actually hold you to that, but now I know I need to hold you to it.
So you gonna say it or not?
Well, you said that you know. You can't just say you don't know, and I'm not going to hold it against you. I'll just say it.
I mean, in all honesty, I really don't know because I don't give a shit.
Okay, yeah. So his defense in court is not that I didn't do that. It's I was the president. You can't question whether because I was president, it's totally legitimate for me to do this.
So I have another question.
Well, hold on. Can you just wait? Hold on. I just want you to like answer to that. So if Donald Trump doesn't even argue that he wasn't trying to not steal the election, right? He was just saying that everything that he did was protected because he was the president at the time, and that's what the protection is, right?
And he knew that it was a stolen election, and yes. Now, I'm not defending any of the dumbasses who did what they did, but
well, Donald Trump told them to all do all those things.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
Name one person who took action to help Donald Trump subvert the election that was not directed by Donald Trump to do that.
Are you really going down this rabbit hole, Sondsol?
You're the one that's making these claims.
Oh my God.
I'm just trying to see if you actually know anything about the claims that you're saying. So every single person that was indicted or that has been in legal trouble, or the people that haven't been in legal trouble because they begged Trump for a pardon beforehand, all these people have either stayed completely silent or they've had to plead guilty, citing their First Amendment right to lie to the American people as their defense.
Yeah, because they don't. Yeah, because they stood by Trump and now they all hate him. Because
no, Rudy Giuliani is still very pro-Trump. He just said that it was his First Amendment right to lie to the American people. And then he got for his defamation case.
I mean, he's kind of right.
No,
think about it.
No. If you're in a defamation case, you can't say that it's my First Amendment right to lie about someone. That just cedes the entire case. That's why he lost that. Sidney Powell pled guilty and has been disbarred for trying to overthrow the election.
I hate how people keep saying they're trying to overthrow the election. When
well, I mean, that's literally what they tried to do. Can you tell, so 7 fake slates of electors, right?
They said that they were recounting the ballots because, quote unquote, Biden won. And
well, I mean, Donald Trump admitted that Biden won 3 or 4 days ago. You realize that too, right? He said that he lost by a whisker.
Yeah, but I think you guys are just scared because you guys are still going to, as Eddie Guerrero would say, you lie, cheat, and steal.
Well, tell me, where's the part that I've lied this conversation?
Just numbers, numbers, you guys inflate numbers too high, like gun control, all that wondrous stuff, the nitty gritty stuff that we won't get into because, we have 25 more minutes until the debate, and I know you probably want to talk to your chat, so yeah.
Okay. Well, any final words then, real quick?
No.
Okay. Well, hey, buddy, I love you. I'll catch you later, all right?
Yep. Trump's going to win.
All right. Bye. All right.
Everyone who's backstage, here's what I'm going to do. I don't know if all of you are going to stay for this, right? Sure. But I'm going to bring you all on for now because I'm going to use the restroom real quick. And you guys are going to entertain my audience. And Sondsol, who is going to be here, right? Sondsol, if you want to start getting the stream up, right?
Oh, is that my responsibility again?
Yes, that's your responsibility. Why do you think I invited you? But we are going to close down Twitch soon after I get back from the bathroom. So if you are on Twitch, remember, Kick or YouTube, but I'm going to use the restroom. Be good. No slurs. Sondsol, you're in charge till.
What
I
is
get
a
back.
slur?
Well, before, I just want to make a request of Tyler. And it's that you have to tell Wick to stop calling you Tyler when you're not around, because then I keep saying, who the f is Tyler? That's my only request. Carry on, Sondsol.
Okay, well, now that I'm in charge, I guess one second, I have to figure out where we're watching this. I didn't realize that he didn't tell me this. I have to
Just
find.
remember, you can't. I don't know if there's going to be any kind of way of streaming this live. If we're just saying chuck it in the bucket and we're all getting banned, or if we're just gonna I don't know.
Oh,
all I know is
if you're streaming this to Twitch, you need to end your stream now.
Well,
Okay.
the way around. Hold on.
What?
Hold
I
on.
ask what's going on?
There's a way around that. All right. This is what you do.
I don't like this. Anytime Admiral Gibbs says there's a way around it, this sounds like January 6th about to happen.
I mean, Gibbs does know a lot about trying to get around shit. He's a big son of a bitch.
It's true. You know,
Damn.
as big boys, we know. Hey, I'm gonna grease you up right now. Then here's how we do it. You just don't show it, but they can hear the audio. It's not covered on the protection thing.
Wait, did Twitch make an announcement saying any broadcasts of the debate is like verboten? Is that what
No,
happened?
but in the 2016 election, it happened. The 2020, the primary, and the
I might want to do
general
this
election.
as a martyr so that I can go on Twitter and be like, I got banned, I got censored.
I got it, I did it.
Now am.
Well, there's an actual logical way around it, which is you just separate the audio from your VOD track in OBS, and then it won't be in your VOD, and nobody ever goes.
Oh, look at the tech genius over here who knows how to separate it. Oh wow, look at you. You're so.
All right, Sondsol, carry on.
Are you doing it? No. Really quick question. I'm interested. Are you doing it directly in OBS, or do you use voice
what I was
meter
about to
for that? Voice meter, or
I'm pretty sure you can do it
voice
through
meter
OBS.
Is how you would separate the sources into OBS, and then in OBS you would separate the browser source or the Discord source out of your VOD track. But I actually just have a microphone that comes with software that lets me split it now.
Wait,
so I
really
switched
quick,
to that.
Parallax. Can I ask you a question?
on.
Can you go like real
That's
quick?
what I was just about to ask. I wasn't sure.
Because I can't tell if it's your I can't tell if you're sick or if you have if something's wrong with your mic.
Frog in this throat.
You sound like a frog.
I think it's just a frog.
Get the frog
do I sound
out.
Okay now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That frog is out.
I couldn't tell if it was
Be
your
careful-
microphone.
Be careful tonight if there's any frog running around in your living room or something.
Okay, one second. I got
I'm back.
Welcome
Let
back, Wick.
me kill a Twitch.
Yeah, I gotta figure
Not
out
in
how to
Minecraft.
stream to.
All right, I will nuke my Twitch stream. I guess
You don't have to like that. It's your call, right?
No,
Like,
I
it's
agree.
how
No,
much
it's a
risk
bad
you're
it's a
willing
bad
to take.
decision. Don't do that.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, it's a bad decision.
You know
will
what?
get
Look,
clapped.
I'm not monetized on YouTube or Twitter, so you know what? I'm gonna nuke my Twitch stream. Okay.
I'm just gonna cover the stream with a flag. That's what I'm gonna do. A big old American flag waving.
American flag just
And then they
waving
can.
in the wind.
Are you guys
Yeah,
gonna
just
get
waving in the wind.
Does anybody
Um,
know?
The only
X?
American
Well,
thing
while
on
we're
your
waiting for this, and I think Lactoid's going to be joining us hopefully soon. Tiberius, did you have any thoughts on the last thing we were talking about? Because I'm assuming that's why you jumped on.
Oh, I was just hanging out in your backstage. I didn't have any particular reason to be here. I was just hanging out. I don't even remember what the last thing we talked about is. Last time we talked was months ago, if I remember right. So
I meant
missed
the
you, buddy.
last show I was just doing, just now.
Oh,
But
no,
if
I'm
you weren't
sorry.
watching that, you were just literally hanging. You were not helpful.
He came to me.
Yeah, like
happened.
me and
Hey,
Tyler were
real
catching
quick,
up.
Can,
It was
Can
great.
somebody tell me if this is not going to be allowed to be streamed on X or not? 'Cause I usually. make
I
it stream
don't
on
know about that. Here, one second. I gotta
Should be on
mute.
X.
It's still
Hey guys, listen. If you are watching on YouTube, I put a link in chat. Okay. If you're watching on Twitch, here is I can't technically say anything, but there is a link right there. Actually, it's right here. And I'm going to have to end these streams, and I'm going to be streaming this specifically to Kick to not get banned, okay? Then we'll be back later.
particular reason to be here. I was just hanging out. I don't even remember what the last thing we talked about is. Last time we talked was months ago, if I remember right. So
I meant
missed
the
you, buddy.
last show I was just doing, just now.
Oh,
But
no,
if
I'm
you weren't
sorry.
watching that, you were just literally hanging. You were not helpful.
He came to me.
Yeah,
it happened.
me and Tyler were catching up. It was great.
Can somebody tell me if this is not going to be allowed to be streamed on X or not? 'Cause I usually. make
I
it stream
don't
on
know about that. Here, one second. I gotta mute.
It's still
Hey guys, listen. If you are watching on YouTube, I put a link in chat, okay? If you're watching on Twitch, here is, I can't technically say anything, but there is a link right there. Actually, it's right here. And I'm going to have to end these streams, and I'm going to be streaming this specifically to Kick to not get banned, okay? And then we'll be back later. Okay, and we should still be live on Kick. Right? Kick.com. Go to my channel. Yes, we are still live. Look at that. Pop out chat.
Pornhub is now blocked in like half the red states. They just, take to Twitter.
Get it where you get it, I guess. Okay, well, with that, we're going to kind of winnow it down to the people who I specifically reached out to and talked to. There will be a semi-open React panel after this that you are all welcome to join. But for now, I'm going to start winnowing the group. So give me a moment.
All right, tell me if you guys...
Okay.
All right, tell me, is the stream working for you guys?
Yes, can you guys see that, dear viewers on YouTube and on Kick? Can't hear it quite yet, but that's fine because we don't need to right now.
Oh, well, I just want to test it.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, we can hear it.
Okay,
the test worked. Before we begin though, and I'm gonna close watching your stream for now, just so we can talk. Right, but keep it on, keep watching. When it starts, just let me know. Does anyone know where Lactoid is? First of all,
no.
I'll DM him. Okay.
Questions.
What are we looking for tonight? What do you think will happen? What do you think needs to happen? What does each candidate need to do or convey to best help their election, to best win over voters? What are your initial impressions, or not initial impressions, but what are your initial thoughts going into this? What do you expect to see? We're going to start with the Doghouse show, and we're going to work it our way around. But yeah, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so I think that what we're going to see from Donald Trump is he's not going to be able to stick to a policy, a position. I think what we're going to see is he's going to be focusing primarily on the debate itself and how unfair it is. I expect to see when a question is asked, dodge comes from it and it goes on to what he wants to talk about, which likely has to do with immigration. I think we're seeing a lot of talk about immigration come from Donald Trump, whether it's asked or not. I think we're going to see a lot about some of the lack of Kamala's policies, even though I disagree with that sentiment. I think that's what's going to come from Donald Trump. I think we're going to see Kamala Harris do really well on policy and sticking with that. I think she's going to try to throw some zingers. The question is whether those zingers come off as cringe or whether those zingers actually stick. It is a possibility of a 50-50 split of it being one or the other. I think this is all for Kamala Harris to win, but it could also be hers to lose if she comes off a little too cringy and trying to fit in a little bit too youthful.
And I want to, again, we got about 5 minutes before this is scheduled to start. They usually start a little late, right? So it's not entirely right, but conciseness is what I'm looking for here. So Sondsol, same thing. What are your thoughts? What do you think each candidate needs to do? What do you expect will happen? Give us your thoughts.
Kamala needs to get Donald Trump to call her the N-word. I think that should be her only goal tonight. After that, really, like Doghouse said, it is Kamala's to lose. Donald Trump is definitely the underdog going into the debate in terms of who's going to win the debate. I think that it's Donald Trump's going to go up there. He's going to try and do his usual shenanigans. He's not going to say anything of any value whatsoever. He's not going to say anything of any substance. And then all the conservatives are going to seal clap along with him. So let's watch.
Okay. Lactoid, so you weren't here for this, but the question at hand is what does each candidate need to do and what do you expect will occur? Go ahead.
Yeah, do you hear me okay?
Yep, you're fine. You're doing great, buddy.
All right, so what does each candidate need to do? I don't know. I think that Donald Trump just needs to just do his thing, as he always does. I don't expect him to do anything more or anything less. I think Kamala will do fine. I actually do agree with the prediction Rob Noor. He said that he predicts Kamala is going to probably do a little bit better. That's probably true, but It's also possible that she could shit the bed, I guess, if she locks up or says something really dumb, or tries to go for like a I'm speaking when nobody's speaking. That could probably be a memeable moment. So as long as she avoids memeable moments, I think she'll be okay.
Okay, Gibbs, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, someone brought up the border earlier. I really hope that, in the words of like a Houston legend, Jim Adler, that Trump just hammers her on the border like repeatedly, over and over, especially with the new Front Island stuff that's happened.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Like Jim Adler do what?
He hammers them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. It peaked so much. I thought, I was like, wait, he didn't even say hammer. Okay, go on. Sorry about that.
Yeah. It's the whole thing. Sorry. Anyway. But yeah, so I hope they just like hits her on the border repeatedly. I think he needs to do that. I think he should talk about his time in office. Kamala, I mean, really, I think for her keys to win, she needs to lay out some policy. Like, I feel like people don't really understand what is her, right? Like, I feel like that would be a good thing for her to do. As far as Trump, I think the muting the mics thing helps him quite a bit. I mean, maybe it'll cut down on his off the cuffs. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I think maybe keys to victory for Trump is don't call her the N-word. That's the key.
Don't call her the N-word. That's the key. I love it. I love the commentary from Gibbs. Thank you. Last but certainly not least, well, it will be me, but average debate enjoyer. Tyler, what do you have?
So as a residential moderate and centrist.
Remember concise.
Gotcha.
A minute and 30 seconds.
What we're looking for both of the candidates. We're looking for Kamala to define herself. And we're looking for Trump to try to define her. She's the unknown. Trump's had 4 years of incumbency already. We already know what he's going to do. We don't know if Kamala is going to be a repeat of Biden, if she's going to be something out of the Obama coalition, based on some of the people she's brought in, or we don't know if she's going to be her 2020 political instincts from inner Democrat policy. We're going to look for defining Kamala and Trump just not blowing it.
No N-word, no blowing. Okay, Trump has his marching orders. So
T-minus
for
60 seconds.
We can't have another debate like it was the last time. If Kamala shits the bed, if she flubs this and f***s it up, I don't know. That's a huge problem. She needs to at least do as good as Trump, right? She needs to break even, right?
Yeah.
I think that ideally she would communicate, right? Because a lot of people are looking at her for the first time, right? But I think the stream's about to start, so we're going to transition to watching that. Try to keep interruptions during the stream itself to a minimum, though we will be commenting as they go. Afterwards is when we're going to get to react, baby, and that's where we're going to get to go. So let's transition to that.
I'm going to crank the volume all the way up so you guys can adjust it yourself, okay?
Is that something that folks will be watching carefully?
He's now, of course, the only
Are we streaming it through Discord?
We will be back with you. It's the top of the hour now, 9 o'clock on the East Coast here in New York and in Philadelphia, the room where it's now from tonight's first and perhaps last presidential debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump.
As we've noted, this will be the first time these candidates have met in person, and it's happening on a debate stage. Also, the first debate since President Biden left the race over the summer and Harris became the Democratic nominee. A lot has happened in a very compressed period of time.
Yes, it has, and we have a few moments until the debate starts. We will join it. ABC News is broadcasting it, but we will simulcast it right here in its entirety. It's taking place at the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia.
You want me to mute?
Mute those guys until the actual debate starts. Right?
Yeah.
I don't care about their commentary.
Can I just say, like, one of the things that as a lib left cuck boy, okay, that's really terrifying here is that the Democrats get held to unbelievable standards. Trump can go up there and like say ooga booga, and literally no one will care. He could just sit there and stammer for like half of the debate about too many brown people coming in from the.
I think it's back on Sondsol.
Oh, are we starting? Oh, hell yeah, let's go.
Around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Are they going to shake hands?
Well, she went to shake his hand.
Oh, wow. She went all the way over.
First.
Thank you.
Because he wasn't going to.
Welcome
How
to you
classy.
both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year, because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad. But it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns. We got masks. We did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
So many times in the next week or two, guys.
Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. "Thank you, President Xi," exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, "I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks." But then the very next day, you reversed reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before. He said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that.
The 9th month thing, though, is right.
Exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Where's the fact check on that?
Again, it's a lie.
Yeah.
I'm not
Well, I
signing
mean,
a ban,
I'm
and there's
sure
no
we'll
reason
see.
to sign a ban because
Trump
we've
is not tied
gotten
in any way
what
to Project
everybody
2025.
wanted. Democrats,
Yeah, what's the fact check?
Republicans,
Shut
and
the fuck up.
everybody else,
He's not.
and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well, I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote.
want
It's
him to answer
impossible
that
for her to
question.
get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans
No, I really want him to
terminated,
answer that
and
question.
it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come
Answer the
close
damn
to getting
question.
student
Answer the
loans.
question.
They
He won't answer the
taunted
question.
young people and
He
a lot of
wants
other
to.
people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support
Absolutely, you should
reinstating
say
the
no.
protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and in asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization.
Lie
The IVF,
accusation.
I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing,
Trump,
you should ask,
fertilization leader.
will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that
Why
question?
don't you
That's
answer
the
the
problem.
question? Would you
Hold on, she should answer this question
You
too.
could do
She should answer
abortions
this
in the
question,
7th
too.
month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's not
month,
true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia.
Why
the
is your
governor
fucking
of
mic not
Virginia
muted?
said we put the baby
Yeah, I know, what
aside and
happened
then
to
we
mic
determine
muting?
what we
It's only
want to
for
do with the
Trump.
baby.
President
Like,
Trump,
Mike
thank
Newton,
you.
that's
We're going
not
to turn
fun.
now to immigration and border
She didn't
security.
answer.
We know it's an
Hold
issue
on,
that's
no, make her
important to
answer the
Republicans,
question.
Democrats,
Like, neither
voters
of them
across
answered
the
the
board
question.
in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration.
Oh,
This
he's
past
salivating
June,
now.
President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating.
Oh my God!
They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase: make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from television.
But the people on
taking it from the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
We'll find out, motherfucker. Talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
Except for one.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you called this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military. You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes. But it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in. And all over the world, crime is down. All over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud.
This is actually a real
Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA of New York.
All the people who were
Every one of those
prosecuting him.
cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election.
Oh, that's why?
Fake cases.
President Trump, thank you.
Wasn't
for
an
a really
illegally
quick response
appointed
here, Vice President Harris,
prosecutor?
on this notion of
No, I didn't say
weaponization
that.
of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice
to
President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot
that
to get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory
you just
government buyback
accused her
programs
of
for
being
assault weapons. Now your
responsible for his
campaign says you
assassination.
don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking, because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your response?
First of all, I wasn't given $400 million.
Oh,
I wish I
God.
was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please.
Oh, shit.
Does that sound familiar?
He did the ice.
She went out. She went out
He
in
ruined it with
Minnesota
that.
and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election,
haven't even asked
they'll
the
go
question.
back
He
to
just-
destroying our country.
Go on. If you
Oil
wanted
will
to
be dead.
respond to any
Fossil
of her
fuel will
thoughts
be
on
dead.
it.
We'll go back to windmills, and
I
we'll
thought he
go
cut him
back to solar.
She
where they
did, but
need
that
a
was
whole
basically-
desert to get some energy to come out
To be
of it.
fair,
You ever
her
see a solar
response to
plant? By the
flip-flopping
way,
was,
I'm a big
well,
fan
look
of
at
solar.
my upbringing.
But they take
Yeah, it wasn't much.
400,
Oh, yo, thank you for the $100,
500 acres
Audacity.
of
I'll read it.
desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days.
break so we can
And
talk
I
about
want to
it.
talk about the
I
peaceful
know,
transfer
seriously.
of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis.
That was
Mr.
so
President, on
fucking
January
stupid,
6th,
dude.
you told your supporters to march to the
pretty
Capitol. You
funny.
said you would be right there
It's
with
not even
them.
funny.
The
This
country and the
is
world
ridiculous.
saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer. that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
you. You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
I bet you he fact checks this one.
That when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia.
Yeah, he's going to fact check this one.
The president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by.
Where's the fact check?
So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos,
The mods are so
and to
bad.
end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath
No
was.
fact check,
Also,
like I thought.
on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what,
really cares about the border,
I would be
dude.
very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this to be
has
open
left
now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate, because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border, because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you, because it really brings this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, we lost. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
Lex Friedman, if you're in chat, which you sometimes are, was he being sarcastic when he said that?
By a whisker, we didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
no judge looked at it. They said we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The President of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker, so he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump
think he's going to get fact
about
checked
this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused.
What a fumble.
About fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just tell you about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men. They call him a strong man. He's a tough person.
Orban, is that the guy you're going to go
Smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They
Dude,
were
that's
afraid
not
of
a
him.
good
China was
endorsement.
afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him.
Hitler
North
thought
Korea
I
was
was a
afraid of
strong president,
him.
right?
Look at what's going on with North
Fair.
Korea, by the
Orban's
way.
like a
He said
horrible
Russia
fucking
was afraid
person.
of him.
He's a
I
dictator.
ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline
Wait, that happened
in the
under
world.
you.
Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president.
That's pretty bad.
But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you
wants
talk
Biden
about
on
a
that
threat
stage.
to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay
President,
with it
Mr.
because
President, your time is
I think
up.
we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war,
No
and the
commercial break.
hostages who are
Jesus.
still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7,
Tricky question.
Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal, and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
How would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation. And now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that.
She just
he's
lost a
trying
son.
to, again, divide and
It's like
distract
whiplash.
from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un, and it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week. He said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it. Because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center.
I don't give a shit. Wow. Okay, I'm going to use my privilege as the host of tonight to say this is amazing content, first of all. I think that Trump is really pushing the border narrative. He is very much doubling down border, 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 right? I think that's his motto here. I think every question he tries to tie to the border. However, I think, and my Republican colleagues, my conservative colleagues might disagree with me, but I think he's doing in such an unhinged way that they're coming to eat our dogs, right, is not going to land with voters. It's not going to land with the audience. I think it's a loser rhetorically, but we'll have to see. I think it'll play to the crazies. And I boosted this and I asked my dear viewers, I put a tweet out asking Lex Friedman, who sometimes watches my show, if he thinks when Trump mentioned on his podcast that he lost, and Trump mentioned he lost by a whisker. That's his words. In his debate tonight, he has said that that was sarcastic. I'm very curious if Lex Friedman agrees with that assessment or if he took him at his word at face value. So boost that if you can on Twitter. I don't usually ask for Twitter boosts, but I'm asking now. If you're watching this, if you are subscribed to my Twitter, I'll do it. But quickly, concisely, let's go to Blackwood first, and then we'll go around.
Skip me.
Skip you. Okay.
Somebody else first.
Doghouse, go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think one thing that I've noticed being mentioned time and time again, and I think this was done on purpose by the Kamala Harris campaign, is they are mentioning the American people, American people, American people, American people. And I think it's intentional. I think that she is stuck very precisely to the policies that will affect the American people. She has been very coherent, very straightforward. Donald Trump has been all over the place. He's not been very coordinated. However, depending on how you're reading that, you could say that he's being authentic, whereas Kamala Harris is being rehearsed. So,
okay. Next, Sondsol, quick.
I think that Trump was really floundering at the very beginning of the debate. He picked it up a little bit in the middle of where we're at right now. And at the end, he started going off about eating dogs and shit. And I think something's getting to him because he's starting to interrupt a lot more. So we'll have to see if he calms down after this. I think that there's a couple of questions that neither of them would answer. That is kind of disappointing, but yeah.
Gibbs, please.
Yeah, you know, I heard some people talking about how tired Trump might look compared to Kamala. He's definitely not getting the Biden treatment. He's coming out there, he's attacking, he's swinging for the fences, whether you think they're landing or not. Yeah, I mean, he's doing what I hoped. He needs to keep hammering the border and hammering how bad she is on foreign policy. I don't know. I don't really feel like her attacks are landing as much, and Trump's doing what I hoped.
Hey, Tyler, please.
Whew, man, I think that based on the two criteria that I gave, I don't think Trump's blowing it. A couple of his comments were a little out there. The dogs one's probably going to be clipped and passed around to show a little bit how crazy he is.
Yes.
He did trail off a little bit unhinged once or twice. Otherwise, he's pretty disciplined. He's 80-90% on message, and he's really sticking it hard to the border because this is the most the border has ever been an issue outside of Republican politics. So, of course, he's going to. This is his signature policy. Harris is doing a decent job defining herself. She hasn't given me much more detail than what she's already been giving for the last few weeks, though. So it leaves a lot open for Trump to keep trying to define her, and you see him taking the chances to with her old policies. Let's see if it works. We'll see the after polling.
Blacktoy, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think the moderators here are super biased. I think they're biased, and I think that that's going to become the new angle of attack here. There's not really, the dog soundbite is bad. I think that there's going to be plenty of soundbites that the Trump campaign is going to be able to use. You know, I think that overall she is probably doing slightly better, even though I don't think it's a complete disaster. And just to back up my belief, Polymarket now has them both tied. Trump's dropped 3% roughly since the debate started, and then she's gained 3%. So they're tied now.
He's only been fact-checked like 1 or 2 times, right?
No, dude. He's been fact-checked 4 times. She hasn't been fact-checked once, despite blatantly lying like twice.
To be fair to the moderators, Trump keeps interrupting the moderators when they try.
Even when it hasn't been that, like it's not even just the not fact-checking her. It's also like he'll be like, "Why don't you ask her this?" And okay, well, that's a good question. Why don't you ask? And then they won't ask. That's like happened at least twice on like several times. He's like, well, "Okay, you asked me this."
Yeah. What has frustrated me about Kamala, if I may, real quick, right? Kamala refused to answer a question that was about abortion, right? Like there was an abortion question which she was asked, "Hey, will you?" I forget the exact question. I wish I'd read it.
Support it up to 8 or 9
Trump had
months.
to ask that. They didn't even ask that. Trump had to ask that, and they refused to hold their feet to the fire on it.
Yeah, that's.
Well,
and then
to be fair, though,
neither of them answered the question, but I'm unmuting.
We're coming back in.
Return to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more, because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
They threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up.
I told you guys,
just to clarify the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
For 3 weeks.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now.
Got a little
But
snappier the second
eventually,
time.
he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that, something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. and the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate.
Oh, here we go.
I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
I agree.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban. because the Taliban was doing
With
the killing. That's the
snipers.
fighting force within
got involved with the
Afghanistan. They don't
Taliban
bother
because
doing
the
that
Taliban
because,
was
you know, they
killing
deal with the
American
wrong people all
That's
the
what
time.
he just said.
But I got involved.
Biden's doing 9/11.
And
Trump's getting involved with the
Abdul is
Taliban.
the head
Wow,
of the
what's happening?
Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good
I like that
agreement. The
negotiated
reason
tactic. It's a good
it was
one.
good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind.
totally had
And
to
just to
make that up out of
finish,
his head.
they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move
And
on.
these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in
Was
the
it
history of our
terminated
country.
at any
And by the
point?
way, that's why Russia
Now he wants to
attacked
move on.
Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight.
Honestly,
Why do you believe it's
I love it.
appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something, I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I don't
asking.
know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out.
Oh no, she's doing
And
it again. Fuck.
I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5.
Not true.
She was
Took
trying
out
to
a
come up with names,
full-page
can't
ad
remember.
calling for
Fact
their
checker.
execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency
They are giving him so much
in the history
grace.
of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're
He's not interrupting
destroying our
her,
country.
though, like at all.
And they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago,
by the way. It was
because there's
dropped.
nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this.
Cut his mic.
She is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
No.
Time's up.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly.
See, they got her mic.
Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President Trump, we have to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
She has a plan to defund the police.
Oh my God, why don't we just turn on the next question,
to confiscate
dude?
everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
no
have to
plan
move on
to
to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay,
That's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need to
President Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump.
president has said
No, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to respond to.
I'm sorry. We're going to move on, Vice President Harris. President Trump, this is now your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up, they wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be? Never going to be great. Or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration.
The best
we read
people.
about the bad ones. We have some
All
real
decided
bad ones too, and so do they.
that
They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But
Concept of a plan?
we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that, and you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we, over the last 4 years, have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed, for the first time, Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it. Past his prologue in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
You made a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to give. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country,
if you don't buy the product, it doesn't affect you.
horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate
I don't care about
from
that.
Philadelphia. Back
Okay. Again, point of privilege. This was a terrible segment overall for Trump. There was a couple missed opportunities in Kamala's end, right? But being asked, what's your plan? And saying, well, I have the concepts of a plan is laughable. It's a laughable answer. It was perhaps, of all the things he said tonight, the most ludicrous.
The funniest.
And again, right? He keeps making these, there's no other word for it, insane statements. Kamala's going to take all your guns. Kamala's going to bring in the people to eat your dogs. Kamala's is a Marxist, right? These are, we just have to say it, insanity. It's insanity.
So real quick on the first point, if you look at what he was saying before he said that I have concepts of a plan, what he said was, we don't have anything better right now, but if something comes up that is better than Obamacare, I would take it. But as of right now, I'm just going to run it the best way I could. I could have let it rot from the inside out, but I have a responsibility to the American people. So instead, we're going to run Obamacare better than the Democrats could. That was essentially what he said. If a better plan comes, I'll change to it. As of right now,
That's a weak answer, dude.
It is a weak answer, but it does provide a little context. And what was the second point you brought up?
Kamala is bringing in people to eat your dogs, and Kamala's a Marxist.
Yeah, the Marxist
and Kamala's
thing.
going to take your guns.
Take the guns. So on
Like, look, I
She
get
is
the-
going
I
to
get
take the guns.
Yeah, I don't know.
She's not.
Yeah.
You
So what
understand?
is-
She's advocating for an AR
Every
ban.
Democrat's
on the
always
website.
taking the
That
guns.
That is
and
taking
all these
guns.
people
It's
still
on
have
the
fucking
website.
guns. I
Yeah.
just don't get it.
That's not what he said. He said Kamala's going to confiscate all your weapons.
Yeah, but
guns.
here's,
He didn't
here's,
say
hold on.
weapons.
Wait, hold on. The
He
argument
didn't say
that-
weapons. He did say guns, right? Kamala's going to take all your guns means he's going to like this is what he
Because
does.
it's a
He makes
stepping
Did he say
insane
all your guns, or
statements.
did he say guns? I'll have to
Hold
roll
on,
it back.
it's
I
a
don't know.
stepping stone, Wick. We all know it. So the first they start with the AR, next they come for the next thing, So that's
It's
what
not
he's
even
saying.
that.
It's like it's already on the website. You can start with this.
The assault
If that gets
weapons
through,
ban-
we're coming
Yes,
for
I
more.
can-
Like
The assault
can I-
weapons ban would have banned all semi-automatic weapons
hold on.
that went through Congress.
Okay, hold on. I can provide like a clear fact on this because I've looked into the assault weapons ban since 2019. Okay, literally I've been checking into this since I started politics. Basically, the assault weapons ban is what Kamala Harris supports, and that's why when she started to go into it, I was like, please don't go into this. This is not a winning issue. Do not go into it, because what it does is it essentially bans all AR-15s. However, it bans them from being purchased. Any AR-15 that has been in place sent before that bill goes into place would
Yeah,
not
no
be
one's guns
confiscated.
being taken.
No,
She
they will not be taken.
co-sponsored it. She co-sponsored that
Yes.
to ban semi-automatic weapons, all of them,
From being
handguns
purchased.
included. Yes.
Yeah,
From
but
being
again, if you own an AR-15 or not an AR-15, I'm sorry, if you own an assault rifle, right, and the ban goes through, they're not going to take it. Like, look, I'm against an
It's the
assault
first-
rifle
it's
ban.
the first
To be
step,
clear,
Whitley.
no, I
It's
just
the
want to be
first
clear.
step.
I'm against an assault rifle ban. I think that's a bad policy. But this idea that they're going to confiscate your weapon is
come on, Wick.
I just
Come
don't
on,
think it's
Wick.
preposterous to say that like things she endorsed and co-sponsored while she was in Congress are her actual stances. Because the
Yeah,
EV, like these are things she actually endorsed.
And like you act like it's like not like common for you to start with one thing and then you start doing more and more draconian things after that.
You know,
Like,
they
this
said
is
that
clearly
about like
the stitch in
COVID
it.
lockdowns and the COVID
I mean,
passports.
I would
and they
agree with the
said that
COVID
about-
lockdowns. I would listen. Yeah,
no,
I
they
would
said
agree
that
on
they
that.
were going to keep on, getting
It's
worse
a
and
test
worse.
or something. You know what? I'm just saying, and like people are like bashing some of these
Every
same
single time
statements
someone
Trump is saying,
says the
right?
government's just going to keep on and keep on and keep on, it never happens. But you guys keep on warning that's going to happen, but then it never happens.
You know, it doesn't happen until it does happen, and that's the problem, right? You never know when it's going to go. Like,
yeah, but on this one,
but it's like it's like a slippery slope, you know. I mean,
I know it's
I
a
would be
slippery slope, but
complaining
you,
if
you have
Kamala
to
was
actually
saying
show
Trump
that
is
this is something that happens.
I mean, to be also on the flip side, I think he's dominated in foreign policy. She's been not look good in foreign policy. That's
I don't think
definitely
she's looked bad in
surprising.
foreign policy.
Something I think he's like surprisingly looked a lot stronger than I thought he was going to look on, and he's tied it all back to the border very well. So he's made foreign policy a domestic issue because most people don't not like vote on foreign policy.
He's tied economy to the border
I'm
as well.
sorry, but like
so I think he's hitting some
if you
key ones
think
there.
that
And a
I
lot
would
of
fix
average people are
everything with one phone call, fucking
We're
foreign
back
policy
in.
is
It's gonna be closing
good,
statements,
like
too.
you're actually. But
Okay, let's hear the closing statements.
Donald Trump.
And when it ends, please join us for analysis of tonight's key moments. Our team will break it down as we enter the final
We are
stretch of
gonna
election day.
analyze
We'll
that
go back to the
shit,
debate
okay?
and closing
Team
statements.
Live from the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump.
That's pretty good.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war.
What he said about
war like
ending
no
the
other
Ukraine
because
war
of nuclear weapons. weapons,
is
the power
Logan
of
Act
weaponry.
violation.
I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our
Christ.
ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution
I don't
Center.
care about this.
I'm Lindsay
We're
Davis.
gonna close the stream.
Yeah.
I have so many things I want to say.
Wow.
It's
yes.
unreal.
We all do.
I
We
took
all
notes
do.
as well.
I
Yeah.
know.
I got a whole notepad
Even I took notes.
full of right. It's crazy. But before we get into that, I just wanted to remind people, if you've watched this content and you haven't liked the stream, why not? That seems like something a Marxist Putin lover would do. Like that stream, right? Subscribe to the channel. This is going to be semi-open. I do want to give all the people here a chance to have their say a little bit, but as we go, we will be bringing people on throughout the night. If I know you, we had a little kerfuffle, a little incident with unknowns recently coming in and doing naughty things. And so I'm going to vet a little bit of the callers tonight, unfortunately. And I'm sad I have to do that, but this is what we have to do. So, yeah. So first of all, before we get into initial reactions, I did get a wonderful super chat. A few of one for $100 from Audacity to say, can you feel my love rising from the heat above? The only way to make sure America heals is a forced union between Kamala and Trump, live stream 24/7 on MTV, brought to you by Cabela's. Love in the Oval Office, special guest Bill Clinton and JFK skull. Thank you for the $100, sir. $10 more from Audacity. TBF, the worst withdrawal this presidency has was a Chase Bank glitch. Hey-o. Thank you for the additional $10. And then $2 from Fates, Canadian dollars, to say foreign funding. Thank you. Okay, that said, initial thoughts. Let's start with Tyler, and I'll end. So, Tyler, thoughts?
Okie dokie. So, as I was saying, there's two things that the candidates have to earn. I don't think Trump blew it. What you were saying earlier, Wick, about these preposterous things, what he's doing is trying to define her by her 2020 policies, what she endorsed, what she co-sponsored, and trying to use that to say, look, these are her political instincts. She's lying to you. She's a phony. She'll tell you whatever she needs to, but these are what she goes for when she has her chance to vote. So it's fair in terms of branding somebody who's rather vague about her policy. She gave a lot of vague words. Like the closing statement was a good point, like opportunity and like the housing. I like her housing policy. I like her small business policy. She sounds like a moderate, like neocon, neoliberal. She basically came out as a conservative tonight on a lot of things, but she sounds moderately good on those issues. It's just I didn't get any detail. I want more. I want more of what she's going to do. She never said what she's going to do to fix the border. The reporter asked her a squish question that basically said, immigration was up for the first 3 years, but as we know now, it's down about 75%. You're doing a great job. You want to comment on that, or did I take care of it for you? It's like, it was pretty crazy how
didn't she answer?
Moderator kind of gave her that softball, but went after Trump. But otherwise, I think she did a really solid. Republican expectations completely blew him out of the water. She had a couple moments where she stammered and stuttered, probably didn't nail home her points as good as she should. There were a few missed opportunities where it looked like she was building up to a good insult and then just fumbled the ball. But other than that, I think she did very good. And in a perfect world, I could easily see myself voting for her. Trump, I don't think, really said anything preposterous enough that he made people think any differently of him than they did going into this.
Okay. Thank you for that. Gibbs.
Yeah, so first note I have is that I thought the bias was pretty egregiously obvious. One caveat to that, they did let Trump talk. Like, I will say that. Like, they didn't cut him off. They let him answer and rebuttal. Surprisingly, Trump wasn't really, like, butting in very often. I think somebody must have coached him up. So I was kind of impressed that, like, he would yell at the moderator, but he wouldn't, like, interrupt her, it didn't seem like. Also, I don't know if what I would do if I was on a presidential debate. Maybe this is why I'll never run for president, among many, many other reasons. But if someone shushed me on a presidential stage, I think I would probably have lost my shit. I don't know. I'd be like, shush, quiet, and I probably would lose it. I'm just saying.
Wait, when did that happen?
Yeah, he told her quiet, please. Like in the
Yeah,
middle
he
of one
did.
of them.
There was there was 2 times that he used
The
that.
second time, it was more like 2015 Republican debate.
Yeah,
Excuse me,
it
Jeb.
was pretty. It's pretty bad. I thought she looked nervous, but then she hit her stride really going into it. Some of the good ones I thought was the Trump sales tax she had going. I did wonder about why they didn't ever fact check the Project 2025 thing. He did exactly what I hoped he would do and hammered the border repeatedly. I think that's something, and then y'all kept saying the insane thing. Well, here's what's interesting to me is like I've been like watching a lot of my normies people on the feed, and they're all like resharing this. Like, this is exactly what we've been saying. This is exactly. So it's almost like there's like people that he's saying what they've been thinking. And it's just like, I don't know whether it's a good or bad thing, or if it's like saying he's only pandering to certain groups. But it's not like it's just in a vacuum. There are definitely people that are thinking what he's saying out loud, and they're like, finally, somebody that's saying this. Yeah, the gun stuff I wish they had gone into more, and I don't know. I think the biggest thing I think he did that was a really good thing was waiting till the end, like after she didn't, and so when she didn't have a chance to rebuttal, was sitting, well, you've been here 3.5 years, why didn't you do anything? Ending it on that note was a really high note for him, I think, to end it on, and her not being able to answer that. I think that was good strategy on his part,
Well,
really.
yeah, because she couldn't. Well, fair enough. Yeah, like it was literally the closing statement, but fair. Blacktoid, please.
Yeah, so my general analysis here is I think Harris did generally fine. I think she did do better than Trump, which I predicted before this debate. Poly market more or less reflects this. They're tied now, but beforehand he was up on her 3%. So he's dropped 3% and she's gained 3%. So that's significant, right? That is a significant reflection of kind of how the betting markets can take in this. And I do think that we're going to see projections reflect this over the next coming weeks. I don't think it was an absolute catastrophe, though. I think this is not like Biden's obliteration in the last debate. And keep in mind, a lot of the people that are going to be saying that Kamala just crushed him are the same people who are saying, Biden did pretty good last time, which, we were saying, no, he didn't do well. And we turned out to be correct on this. But as one of the people who was correct on this, take my word on this, Harris did, I think, overall win this debate, but it wasn't a complete catastrophe. I think both sides did dodge questions at times. Trump did his normal thing of kind of going over the same points over and over again. He was more energetic, I thought, than in the Biden debate, which I think did do him some favors, but obviously his opponent was tougher. The dogs point was a bad point, but it was also sort of hilarious. And so I don't know how well that particular point is going to work like politically for Kamala, because they're going to show that and then people are just going to laugh and remember Trump. The moderators were absolutely biased. And this is, I think, how conservatives will cope with the fact that Kamala did win this debate. I think even the moderators weren't biased. Kamala would still probably have done, edged it, but the moderators were biased, right? We saw constant fact checking on Trump, but Kamala wasn't fact checked at all. Very fine people comment, which I've debated on Wix multiple times, which was admitted by Snopes to be a lie, which the people who I've debated on this told me that yes, it was a lie and apologized to me for saying that I was a liar by pointing out that it was a lie. That wasn't questioned at all at any point during the debate. Project 2025, the lies there weren't questioned at all. The fact checks against Trump were also somewhat questionable, like the FBI one. Trump actually does have a point that the recent FBI crime statistics are omitting some data. And, it's not exactly clear. I mean, yes, the statement of the FBI is that crime is overall down, but it's not exactly clear when you factor in, the missing data, if that is the case. Also, it didn't sound like sarcasm. I don't think that's a proper fact check. If the moderator believes that it doesn't sound like sarcasm, it seemed pretty ridiculous. Her policies were not dug into. Trump actually had to ask the 9th month abortion question. He did dodge the abortion question as well. And then she dodged it, but the moderators didn't do anywhere near the same level of grilling on her. They asked him the same question 3 times over, and he didn't answer it. He had to bring up the 9th month abortion question, which, by the way, his vice president did sign a law that allowed abortion into the 9th month. But this wasn't gone into at all. She looks like a reptile a little bit when she smiles. I don't know if you guys see it. I saw this multiple times.
Well, that's a let him finish, but that's a left turn from the analysis.
I'm just going over my notes, right? Because I noticed this multiple times. Like she did this thing, especially. She did this especially
eyes
when
blink like sideways instead of up and down or something.
They could have. Like I noticed it multiple times. It was especially apparent when Trump said the "I'm talking" bit, and she did this weird smile, and she arched her neck back, and she smiled, and she looked down, and she looked just like a lizard. It was very unnerving.
I was convinced Antis, so maybe if she's on the side there, I wouldn't be too surprised.
She did look very, very lizard-like. But the last thing I'm going to say real quick, Hassan was brought up, and Hassan said something on Twitter that I actually think is kind of a good point. He said, quote, "The immigration panic narratives make Trump sound insane, but the fact that the Dems aren't countering even a little bit of this narrative is genuinely alarming." Trump kept going back to immigration because that's his point. That's what he does. And yes, it was obnoxious at times, and it was tired at times. But did anybody actually hear a substantive rebuttal? Did anybody was there anything that was presented on one of the most pressing political issues of the day whatsoever from Kamala? I can't think of a single thing.
The moderator
and the moderators didn't even really push her too much on that.
The moderator
she said that her policy would be the one that Donald Trump shot down. When she was hitting on that point, that's how she led into it.
She defaulted to legislation.
The bipartisan bill.
She defaulted to legislation. What's the DHS going to do? What's the executive branch going to do?
Did she talk about that at all, or did she just that's how I'm going to do what?
That's how the topic when the topic brought up. That's how she opened with it. That I supported and wanted a bipartisan bill. That
and I would bring back that bill if put it in my desk, I would sign it. That's how she led into it. So she did answer that question.
I'll have to go back and rewatch that point. It didn't sound like a solid answer because I thought she deflected by talking about his rally sizes. Right, that's what I thought it was.
No, that was later on a little bit. Yeah, that shit was a little bit funny though.
Is that it, Locktoid?
Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, Sondsol, please.
I think that it wasn't a total disaster for Trump, but I think that he did a couple of things that are going to get memed into oblivion. I think that that's probably not something that's going to look good for him with the eating of the dogs and shit. I just don't know why, if that was something that he decided to do just right then, or if for some reason, he has Zika babies as his debate handlers, and they told him definitely talk about eating the dogs. I don't know whose decision it was, but it was crazy to do that. So that's a massive L right there. I think Trump at times when he started getting more combative, sometimes it seemed a little bit justified, but the more he did it, the more it felt like he was being a little bit of a listen, I'm a little high. I'm just going to say it like it is. He acted like a little bit of a bitch up there sometimes when he kept on interrupting constantly. The moderator should have reeled that in. And I also think that they should have pressed the two of them on those couple of questions that y'all talked about as well. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I think that Kamala came out on top. Probably I for expectations going in, I would say she probably performed about a 7.5 to an 8 if I'm being super generous. Trump was at he wasn't at Trump 10, man. He wasn't at Trump 10. He was at Trump 4.5, 0.75.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Anything else from us, Sondsol?
No. I'm
4.75. Okay, you just
4.75.
You're riding the wave. Okay.
I think Sonsol's
brother high. Okay.
Right? Yeah, I get you.
I give him 6.2 out of 8.3.
There you go.
What do you got for us, the Dockhouse Show, please?
Man, let me tell you what. So first of all, let the record reflect that I was correct that he was going to continuously go back to the immigration issue. Hold on one second.
Okay. Well, while he's gone, let me just give my thoughts.
My dog was whining, and
okay,
could
he's
hear
back
it was
now.
3 minutes.
Back now. Go
Okay,
ahead.
I'm sorry. So yeah, she was let the record reflect that Trump was going to continuously go back to the immigration issue. I had a feeling he was going to continue to do this. The other thing that I thought was really interesting, and I don't know if anybody else noticed this, is that she would continuously look at the camera. She wanted to speak to you, and this was definitely a debate coach thing that she was they were telling her, look at the camera, make sure you find it, make sure you're speaking straight to the American people. She continuously used that word, the American people. I think there was another word that she used. Let me get it pulled up here because I had it pulled up. She said...
Was it opportunity economy?
Opportunity economy was a big one. She used opportunity economy a lot. And so what I felt was this. At the end of the debate, it was down to two things. I think Trump started with his debate coaching and then just slowly lost control of it. It was like a runaway train. He just I'm going to go off script. Screw it. I'm throwing it away. And then I think that Kamala Harris ended up taking her debate coach serious, like her debate prep extremely seriously. So it's a tale of two different cities. Do you like the off script kind of candid response, or do you like the scripted response? The thing about Donald Trump, though, is that a lot of his policies, it was basically, I'm not Kamala. That was something I kept picking up on. And his conclusion, his final response was exactly that. It's like, she messed up the economy. She did this. She did that. And you're kind of left, okay, great. She did this. What are you going to do? And it was nothing. It was just, she's messing it up. She's messing it up. She's starting foreign war. She did this. That. It's like, that's cool. But I expected that because that is how Trump's campaign is operating right now. It's all on mudslinging and little policy. And he's got the thing about it, which is crazy, is he has a policy up on his website. But I didn't see much of that. It was very, very watered down. So it depends on how you viewed this. I think you take away from this that, in my opinion, Kamala won. I think she won this on policy. She won this on speaking to the American people. And I think she was much more composed than Donald Trump, who the moderators, let me just tell you, let him get away with a lot of stuff. Just let him go on and on and on. It's like you're sitting there, why are you not cutting off? Like, what's the point of having a mic cut if you're not going to cut his mic? I didn't see anybody get their mic cut, except, if I'm being quite frank, Kamala Harris felt like she got her mic cut a few times, or at least it was muted. And it's like, so you could say that they were biased because of that one fact check, but they definitely gave Trump a lot more leeway in that debate. So.
Okay, thank you. So, going to echo a few sentiments here. Policy-wise, and I have extensive notes. I can share it with the class if anyone wants to see. But the biggest thing that Kamala did that impressed me at first was her being specific about certain policies. Obviously, debate stage is not a place to go into grand detail here, but the $50K tax benefit for new businesses, that's a good plan, right? When she talks about her, let's see, the border bill and citing the border bill, also specific policy, a good plan. You can not like these things or like these things, but these are solid points. Unfortunately, as the debate went on, specifics went out the window, policy went out the window, right, for all these things. She did return to it a time or two, right? But Trump, in comparison, there was no policy prescribed. Not a single policy, except for he would end the war in Israel and Ukraine. He doesn't tell us how, except for he would make a phone call and it would stop. Other than that, he did not talk about specific policies at all. He made several claims, such as, I actually won in 2020. He doubled down on that. He said that what he said during the Lex Friedman interview was sarcasm, quote unquote. When he talked about our country has gone to hell, me try to overthrow the government, what about all the illegal aliens, was a wild deflection, a wild dodge. Talking about afterbirth baby executions, talking about they're eating the dogs. Kamala will cause World War III. Kamala is a Marxist who will end our country and make it Venezuela on steroids. These are all very extreme things to say with, I don't think, any backing whatsoever. So again,
What do you mean no backing? What do you mean no backing?
Okay.
Just
do
some
you
backing.
think Kamala, honestly, be honest with me, Gibbs.
Yeah, I mean,
do you
I'm gonna
think
be honest.
Kamala will
It does
cause
seem
World
like
War III?
some of that. Yeah, I see her as much more likely to start World War III, in my opinion.
No, he didn't say she's more likely to start World War III. He said Kamala will cause World War III.
Yeah, I mean, it's a conclusion that I could come to.
Okay, I don't take that seriously.
I mean, I don't care if you take it seriously. I like this.
I
is
don't
what
think voters do either.
I think that you're wrong, and I'm going to tell you why I think that you're wrong. It's real simple. There's a large segment of the U.S. that y'all are just dismissing, and like Trump is saying these things, and this is what they're thinking. Like they're like, hey, like I've been thinking this for a while, and like now whether or not that's going to play well, we'll see. But there is a large group of people that
Do you think he was being sarcastic when he said on the Lex Friedman interview that
no, it's obviously It's obviously dishonest. Some of the things you mentioned, others are hyperbole that are kind of fair game, but there are definitely things you said that are flat out dishonest, and it should be pointed out.
Well, hold on. One thing about Trump though is he already has his policy established, right? And like I know you were saying, hey, he didn't go into detail. My thing is like we pretty much know what his policy is. Sure, but like, well, okay, that's fair. You should have mentioned it. But he definitely like we already know what his policies are prescribed. I think there's just a difference, like when you don't have to hold him to that. Yeah, hold on, just
he has the incumbency.
His policy is get rid of the Mexicans.
We can look at what he's already done previously.
Build the wall.
We have Agenda 47.
Don't eat dogs.
Like don't eat dogs. Yeah, you're right. Sure, but my point is, it's not like Kamala, where we are very like new to what her policy is, and we're like guessing. Yeah, Kamala, whatever her name is. I'm just saying, Miss Harris, President-elect Harris, or wannabe-elect Harris, or whatever she's gonna be. Who knows? That person. Listen, we don't know what her policy is. Like, it's very like vague, right? It's nebulous. We've argued about it, and she's kind of put forth some stuff, and so we have to go off her record, which is still nebulous. And so I don't think that she really gave.
What's nebulous about her record? Like all of her.
She is pretty. I don't know what her stance on immigration.
You know what her stance is on like everything is. Honestly, like,
she said that she said
what's her
that
voting
she
record
already
in
said.
Congress? Do you know it off the top of your head?
No, you're saying that it's
No, you don't know
the
it
reason.
off the top of your head. So, like, don't play
I
like
didn't
you
say
know
that I
her-
knew it off the top of my head, but you said that it's nebulous. But like,
Yeah,
if it's
nebulous. You know it. You don't know it. You don't know.
I read her policy page.
What does nebulous mean to you? Is that just like is just like any fact that's anything in the world that is an unknown fact to you is nebulous?
No, I mean hers is hard to peg down. Nobody really knows what it is.
I mean, you can go and look at her voting record. Like it's public fucking record.
I don't. What is she going to do on the border?
Exactly.
She said that she's going to. She supports the immigration plan.
That's what Congress is going to do. That's what Congress is allowing the president.
Hold
on. What is her DHS going to do? What is her border policy going to look like?
I can address this. So one of the things that she's looking to try to do is trying to reform some of our justice system for like the judges and things of that nature. She's also looking to bring back the bipartisan bill as well. That's part of it. I could go back to her.
That's not what the president is. I want to know what her DHS is going to do.
If you want something like that, then I would have to go and look at exactly when she talked about immigration.
Yeah, Trump's policy page says that. He says what executive orders he's going to do, exactly what his DHS is going to do. We don't even know like what.
Can we acknowledge? Because I have to go in like 2 seconds, so I really want to ask.
Yeah,
this
I also need to leave. Unfortunately,
I'm very curious.
Yeah, I understand.
Very curious.
I see you guys waiting backstage. We'll pull you on after. Yeah.
I'm very curious what y'all's opinions are, though, on these potential Logan Act violations, because I thought that was really interesting how he's like, oh, yeah, I've talked to the president of Ukraine or something. And then he was like, at the very end of it, he's like, I will go and talk to President Putin before I even get into office. I'm like, I don't know about that, Chief. I don't know.
Well, no, it was stronger than that. He said he's on the phone with world leaders all the time. They call him on.
Yeah, you're allowed to talk to world leaders, but if you're negotiating something political, it could be a violation of the law.
Yeah, that just raised red flags for me. Well, first of all, it's eminently believable to me that him, Putin, Viktor Orban, all these people regularly talk. That is eminently believable to me, right? He didn't mention which leaders, right? But I can see it, and he's the one that said it. So yeah,
I'm sorry, I don't believe him. I think he talked to like Viktor Orban, and he said that shit to him, and now he's exploding it to. I talked to all these leaders, all the fucking. He talked to one leader, and they told him something that he wanted to hear, and now he's sucking his own dick over it. Okay.
I don't think there's ever been any report of a bad relationship with Zelensky. I don't think they've ever said anything bad about each other.
There was a controversy, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, about Trump threatening him over the phone to investigate something. Yeah.
He said it was a very fine phone call, and Zelensky didn't say anything negative about it.
Yeah, because he was terrified that he wasn't going to get the weapon shipments because Russia was already inside
the
of
weapon
Ukraine.
shipments 4 days later.
I love
By the
that.
time the impeachment started.
Oh, speaking of that, the best thing he did was the story about the photograph.
Last thing. I will say this. I loved how detailed Kamala Harris was on like what kind of aid she gave to Ukraine, where she's like, I gave them M1 Abrams, I gave them javelins, I gave them this. I was like, okay. Meanwhile, Trump's like, the Taliban took you out with a sniper. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, what? Oh, why so specific?
It is good because
I just think he tacked it on at the end because snipers are scary.
At Trump's rallies, one of his points that he's been saying at his rallies is that he was the one that started selling Ukraine lethal weapons, and Joe Biden stopped that in order to negotiate with Russia. So her saying we're selling them lethal weapons kind of cuts his point out at the heels. So it's good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, guys, I
know you got to go. Where can people find you guys?
I'm the Doghouse Show. You can find me on Twitter, X, TikTok, because I'm blowing the fuck up on TikTok. I'm becoming a TikToker, which I do not like. And I am also on YouTube. So wherever you want to find me, just search the Doghouse Show and just make sure it's not like a questionable website, because I promise I am not doing that kind of stuff yet. Okay? Anyways.
Thank you for coming. I'll see you later. So you have to go too. What's your
Yep.
thoughts?
Yeah, you can find me on Sondsol, on Twitch, on YouTube, on Kick. I'm a that likes to talk about the news, and that's about it. Do I need to say anything else?
No.
All
Thanks
right.
for coming.
Don't act so cool.
Hi, is it Kite? Anybody?
Sondsol.
All right, guys. I gotta dip out. Later, guys.
Sondsol, what the?
Say it. Wait, who's saying this?
Oh,